somewhere along the way, people began to believe that being understood was the same as being accepted. It is not. For 2,500 years, Buddhist teachings have followed people who were judged too quickly, spoken about unfairly, and seen through the narrow eyes of others. People who explained themselves until they were exhausted. People who stayed silent and were called cold. People who chose peace and were mistaken for weak. People exactly like the one listening right now. Buddhism teaches that suffering grows when we depend on the minds of others to tell us who we are. 25 stories are ahead of you, 25 misunderstandings, 25 quiet battles, 25 doors into freedom. These are not stories about proving yourself. They are stories about becoming free when no one understands. We begin with a monk who had spent most of his life trying to make people understand him. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. He was not angry. He was tired. There is a kind of tiredness that comes from work, and there is another kind that comes from explaining your heart to people who have already decided what it contains. He knew the second kind well. Before he became a monk, he lived in a village where every action became a story. When he stayed quiet, people called him proud. When he spoke, they said he wanted attention. When he helped someone, they wondered what he wanted in return. When he walked away from an argument, they said he was afraid. He tried to correct them. At first, he believed one clear explanation would be enough. It was not. He explained why he had remained silent. He explained why he had refused an invitation. He explained why he had left the village festival early. He explained why sadness had appeared on his face when nothing terrible had happened. Every explanation led to another question. Every answer created another place where his words could be twisted. We recognize this. Most of us have stood in this place. We have felt the sudden need to tell someone, "That is not what I meant." We have repeated ourselves until our own truth began to sound uncertain. We have imagined that peace was waiting on the other side of being understood. If only they knew the whole story. If only they saw our intention. If only we could find the perfect words. But there are no perfect words for a mind that has already closed. The man carried this hunger into the monastery. He believed monks would be different. He believed people who meditated every day would not judge so quickly. They did. A monastery is still filled with human beings. Human beings bring their fears wherever they go. One monk thought his silence meant wisdom. Another thought it meant pride. A third believed he was hiding something. The new monk began explaining himself again. He spoke carefully. He used gentle words. He told them about his childhood, his fears, and the reasons behind his choices. Still, they misunderstood him. The more he explained, the less free he became. His mind began preparing answers before anyone had even questioned him. He watched faces for signs of disapproval. He listened for his name in distant conversations. He carried an invisible court inside him. Every day he stood before it. Every day he defended himself. One evening, he went to the oldest teacher in the monastery. The teacher was sitting beside a small pond, watching leaves move across the water. The monk bowed. "Teacher," he said, "people keep seeing me wrongly." The old teacher looked at the pond. A leaf floated past them. "Stop it," the teacher said. The monk waited. "Stop what?" "Stop that leaf." The monk looked at the water. "I cannot." "Then explain to it why it should not move." The monk thought the teacher was making fun of him. "Teacher, the leaf cannot understand me." The old man nodded. "And yet you spend your days speaking to minds that are no more open than that leaf." The monk became quiet. This sounds simple. It is one of the hardest truths to accept. We cannot control the shape we take inside another person's mind. They do not see us directly. They see us through old wounds, old fears, old memories, and old disappointments. They meet us carrying everyone who hurt them before, and we do the same. The teacher picked up a stone and dropped it into the pond. The water opened around it. Then it closed again. "Speak when your words can reduce suffering," he said. "Speak when someone may be harmed by silence. but do not spend your life trying to repair your image inside every mind." The monk felt resistance rise in him. What if they believe something false? They may. What if they judge me? They will. What if they never understand? The teacher looked at him. Then you must decide whether your peace belongs to them. The monk carried those words back to his room. That night, he did not sleep well. He remembered every false story ever told about him. He imagined correcting each one. He imagined gathering the whole village and speaking until everyone understood. Then he saw what he had never seen before. His wish to be understood had become another form of attachment. He was attached to an image, the image of himself as kind, honest, good, reasonable. He did not only want to live with integrity, he wanted everyone to agree that he had integrity. These are not the same thing. Buddhist teaching asks us to look carefully at what we call the self. We defend it as if it were solid, but it changes from moment to moment. To one person we are generous, to another distant, to one person brave, to another foolish. Which one is the real self? The monk began watching the urge to explain. Someone misunderstood his silence. The urge appeared. His chest tightened. Words formed in his throat. He wanted to follow the person, stop them, and correct the story. He stayed still. The discomfort grew. He stayed still. His mind said, "Do something." He breathed. The feeling reached its highest point. Then it weakened, and it passed. Nothing had been destroyed. The monastery remained. The sky remained. His breath remained. He was still himself, though someone else carried the wrong idea about him. Something quiet opened inside him. He understood that another person's misunderstanding could exist without becoming his prison. This did not make him passive. When a lie threatened someone's safety, he spoke. When silence would allow cruelty, he spoke. When truth could reduce suffering, he spoke. But he stopped speaking only to protect his image. He stopped chasing rumors. He stopped knocking on closed minds. He stopped placing his peace in the hands of people who did not know how to hold it. Praise came. He let it pass. Blame came. He let that pass too. Both were weather. Neither was his home. We all live near this same pond. Maybe someone in your family has decided who you are and refuses to see anything else. Maybe a friend misunderstood your silence. Maybe you walked away to protect your peace, and someone called it weakness. Maybe you have spent years trying to explain a pain that no one else can fully enter. You may never find the words that make everyone understand. This is not failure. Freedom does not begin when the whole world sees you clearly. Freedom begins when you no longer need the whole world to do so. The monk continued his work. He swept the courtyard. He carried water. He sat beneath the trees. Some called him wise. Others still called him proud. He bowed to both stories and kept walking. But one villager saw his silence and took it as proof of arrogance. By sunset, the villager had carried that judgment through the monastery gate. And by morning, the whole village was repeating it. The young novice had heard what was being said, and he had decided the monk must be defended. We begin with a rumor that arrived before the people who carried it. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. By sunrise, the monastery gate was already holding the weight of many voices. The gate itself was old. It had stood through storms, dry seasons, weddings, funerals, and years when no one from the village came near it. It had heard prayers spoken with trembling lips. It had heard angry men demand answers. It had opened for the grieving. It had closed against wild animals. But that morning, something invisible passed through it. A rumor. Rumors do not need feet. They move through mouths. They enter one person as uncertainty and leave them as fact. By the time the first villagers reached the monastery, the story had grown. The monk had not simply remained silent. Now he had mocked the village. He had called the people foolish. He had said their opinions were worth less than dust. None of this had happened. But repetition gives falsehood a strange kind of clothing. The more people say something, the more it begins to look like truth. The young novice stood near the gate and listened. He was 16 years old. He had entered the monastery only months earlier. Before that, he had lived with an uncle who blamed him for everything that went wrong. A broken cup, a missing coin, a gate left open during the night. Even when the boy was innocent, no one believed him. So he had grown up with a hunger for justice. He wanted every false accusation corrected. He wanted every liar exposed. He wanted truth to arrive like thunder and silence every cruel voice. When he heard the villagers speaking about the monk, that old hunger woke inside him. "They are lying," he said. An older monk beside him continued carrying a basket of rice. "Perhaps. Not perhaps. They are." The older monk looked at him. "And what will you do?" "I will tell them the truth." The novice walked toward the gate. His hands were already tight. This is how anger often begins, not as hatred, as love mixed with fear. We see someone we respect being treated unfairly. We feel pain. Then the mind says pain is not enough. Do something. Strike back. Make them understand. The novice believed he was walking toward truth, but anger was walking with him. The villagers gathered outside the gate. The farmer stood at the front. "You know why we have come," he said. The novice answered before anyone else could speak. "You have come because you believed a story without asking whether it was true." The farmer frowned. "We spoke to the monk ourselves. One of you spoke to him, and he showed his pride." The novice stepped closer. He showed patience. The farmer laughed. "Is that what monks call it now?" The people behind him began whispering. The novice felt his face become hot. He knew the monk was gentle. He had watched him share food with a sick traveler. He had seen him sit all night beside a dying dog. He had seen him give his blanket to an old woman during the cold season. How could these people speak as if they knew him? "You know nothing about him," the novice said. The farmer's eyes narrowed. "And you know everything?" The question landed harder than it should have. The novice heard his uncle's voice inside it. "You think you are better than everyone." The past entered the present. It happens quickly. One moment, we are speaking to the person before us. The next, we are answering someone from years ago. The novice raised his voice. "At least I know enough not to spread lies." The crowd changed. They had arrived angry. Now they felt insulted. A woman near the gate said, "Perhaps pride is taught inside these walls." Another said, "The boy speaks just like the monk." The novice had wanted to end the rumor. Instead, he was feeding it. This is one of the painful truths of human life. We can fight so hard against a story that our fighting appears to prove it. We can defend kindness with cruelty. We can protect peace with anger. We can speak for truth in a way that makes no one able to hear it. The older monk placed the basket down. He touched the novice's shoulder. "That is enough." "It is not enough," the novice said. "They must understand." The older monk looked toward the villagers, then back at the boy. "Do they look ready to understand?" The novice looked. He saw crossed arms, tight jaws, faces prepared for battle. No one was listening. They were waiting for their turn to speak. The older monk said quietly, "A closed fist cannot receive water." The novice knew the teaching, but knowing a teaching while calm is not the same as living it while angry. He pulled his shoulder away. "If we remain silent, they will think the rumor is true." "Perhaps. You keep saying perhaps, because their thoughts are not ours to command." The novice hated this answer. It sounded weak. He believed truth should win immediately. He had not yet learned that truth and victory are not always the same. Truth can remain true while everyone rejects it. A lie can remain false while an entire village believes it. The crowd began shouting questions. Why will the monk not face us? What is he hiding? Does he think silence makes him holy? Each voice added weight to the others. Soon, no one knew who had asked the first question. The noise became one large thing. The monk heard it from the courtyard. He placed down the broom and walked toward the gate. When the villagers saw him, the shouting changed. Some became louder, others became quiet. The farmer lifted his chin. Have you finally come to explain yourself? The monk bowed. I have come to listen. The farmer shook his head. There, again, you refuse to answer. The monk looked at the gathered faces. He saw anger, but beneath the anger, he saw other things. Fear of being looked down upon. Memories of powerful men who had ignored them. Pain from times when silence had been used as punishment. The villagers believed they were carrying one rumor. Each person had brought an older wound. The monk said, I am sorry my silence caused pain. The farmer was not satisfied. That is not an explanation. No. Then tell us what you really think of us. The monk was quiet for a moment. The novice watched him. This was the perfect chance. He could tell them everything. He could prove his kindness. He could list every act of service. He could expose the farmer's mistake. Instead, the monk said, What I think of you changes nothing about your true worth. The crowd did not know what to do with this. The farmer asked, Is that another way of avoiding the question? Perhaps, the monk said gently. For the first time, one of the villagers laughed. It was a small laugh, almost unwilling, but it loosened something. The monk continued, If I praise you, you may feel pleased. If I blame you, you may feel hurt. But neither praise nor blame can tell you completely who you are, the farmer said, and neither can silence. That is true. The answer surprised him. He had expected resistance. The monk offered none. A fight needs two people holding the same rope. When one releases it, the other is left pulling against empty space. The farmer looked around. The crowd was quieter now, but the rumor had already entered too many minds. Silence at one gate could not remove it from every house. The monk understood this. The novice did not. He stepped forward again. Tell them the rumor is false. The monk turned toward him. Would that end it? It should. But would it? The novice looked at the crowd. Some were listening. Others had already decided the monk's calmness was another performance. He began to understand. A rumor does not survive because no one has denied it. It survives because it gives people something they are ready to believe. The Buddha taught that speech should pass through careful gates. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it spoken at the right time? Is it spoken with a mind of kindness? The rumor had passed through none of these gates. It had reached the monastery because each person found some pleasure, fear, or importance in carrying it. We do this more often than we admit. A story comes to us. We feel powerful because we know it. We feel included because we can repeat it. We feel safe because someone else has been made smaller. Then we pass the suffering forward. The monk opened the gate fully. You may enter, he said. There is rice and tea. Some villagers left. They had come for conflict, not tea. Others stayed. They sat beneath the trees. The farmer remained outside. He was no longer certain, but uncertainty can feel dangerous to a person who has built his identity around being right. He turned toward the road. The rumor had reached the monastery gate. Now it was returning to the village, changed again. And beside the open gate stood a young novice who still believed he could run after it and force every mouth to tell the truth. And beside the open gate stood a young novice who still believed he could run after the rumor and force every mouth to tell the truth. By evening, he had already tried. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The novice went from house to house. He spoke to the grain seller. He spoke to the potter. He spoke to the women beside the river. He repeated the monk's words carefully. He explained what had happened at the gate. He told them the monk was not proud. He told them the silence had been misunderstood. Some listened. Some smiled without believing him. Some asked questions only to find new reasons to doubt. By sunset, the novice had spoken so much that his throat hurt. Still, the rumor moved faster than he did. It had reached homes he had not visited. It had changed in ways he could not follow. Now people were saying the monk had ordered the villagers to kneel. Others said he had closed the gate against an old woman. Someone claimed the novice had threatened the farmer. None of it was true. The novice returned to the monastery carrying the strange defeat of someone who had used all his words and changed almost nothing. We recognize this. There are moments when we believe one more explanation will finally fix everything. One more message, one more conversation, one more perfect sentence. We imagine that truth is only failing because we have not spoken clearly enough. But sometimes the problem is not the clarity of our words. Sometimes the mind receiving them has no space. The novice found the monk sitting beneath a tree. "You were right," he said. The monk looked up. "About what?" "They do not want the truth." The monk moved aside, making room for him. The novice sat. His anger had changed into sadness. This often happens when anger becomes too tired to continue. Beneath it, we find the hurt that had been there from the beginning. "I defended you," the novice said. "I know. I explained everything. I know. They still believe what they want." The monk nodded. The novice looked at him. "Does that not trouble you?" "It troubles me that they are suffering. That is not what I mean. I know." The novice lowered his head. He wanted the monk to admit pain. He wanted him to show anger. He wanted proof that being misunderstood wounded everyone in the same way. Instead, the monk seemed calm. The novice mistook calmness for the absence of pain. It is not the same. A peaceful person can still feel hurt. They have simply stopped building a house around the hurt. The novice asked, "How can you sit here while people lie about you?" The monk picked up a dry leaf. He turned it between his fingers. "If the wind carries this leaf into the river, should I chase it?" "No." "Why not?" "Because it is only a leaf." The monk placed it on the ground, and a rumor is only a thought moving through many minds. The novice was not satisfied. A thought can destroy a person. "Yes," the monk said, "if the person begins living inside it." The novice became quiet. From the meditation hall came the sound of monks preparing for the evening practice. Sandals moved across stone. Robes brushed against wooden doors. The sky darkened slowly. Soon the bell would ring. The novice had always loved the evening bell. Its sound traveled beyond the walls. It moved across the fields and entered the village without asking who believed in it. It did not explain itself. It simply rang. But that evening he was waiting for something else. He had heard that the village elder was coming. The elder was respected by everyone. If he asked the monk to explain, the matter might finally end. The novice held on to this hope. Hope can be another form of waiting for control to return. The elder arrived before darkness. He entered through the gate carrying a wooden staff. Behind him came the farmer and several villagers. No one shouted this time. The noise had become seriousness. The elder bowed slightly to the monk. "I have come for an answer." The monk stood. "To which question?" "Do you believe you are better than the people of this village?" The novice held his breath. Here it was, a simple question. A clear answer could end everything. The monk could say no. One word. That was all. But the monk did not answer immediately. He looked at the elder. He looked at the farmer. He looked at the villagers gathered behind them. Then he looked at the novice. The silence returned. The farmer shook his head. "You see?" The novice felt panic. "Teacher," he whispered, "answer him." The monk remained still. This sounds unreasonable. Why stay silent when one word could defend you? But the monk was not refusing from pride. He was looking carefully at the question. Buddhist practice teaches us not to answer only the words. We must also see the hunger beneath them. The elder was not simply asking whether the monk felt superior. He was asking the monk to place himself into one of two boxes, proud or humble, guilty or innocent, for us or against us. Human beings often ask questions that leave no room for the whole truth. The monk finally said, "There are moments when pride arises in me." The crowd stirred. The farmer smiled as if he had won. The novice felt his heart fall. The elder asked, "So you admit it?" "I admit that pride arises just as anger, fear, and kindness arise." "That is not an answer." "It is the most honest one I have." The elder frowned. The monk continued, "If I say I have no pride, I would be lying. If I say I am nothing but proud, that would also be false." The villagers did not know what to do with this. They had come for a clean answer. The monk had given them a human one. We want people to be simple because simple people are easier to judge. Good or bad, kind or cruel, wise or foolish. But no human being remains one thing. The mind changes, feelings arise and pass. Even the monk who had stopped explaining himself could feel pride. He simply did not let that pride decide every action. The elder looked toward the meditation hall. "You could have said this before." "Would it have been heard before?" The elder did not answer. The novice watched him carefully. For the first time he saw uncertainty on the old man's face. Then the farmer stepped forward. "You are still avoiding the question." The monk turned to him. "No answer I give will remove the answer you already carry." The farmer opened his mouth. Before he could speak, the monastery bell rang. The sound entered the courtyard. Deep, clear, complete. It passed through every argument without fighting any of them. The villagers became quiet. The second strike came, then the third. Each sound rose, each sound faded. No one could hold it. No one could make it stay. The monk looked toward the bell. "Listen," he said. The farmer became irritated. "We came for an answer." "And the bell came before it. What does that mean?" The monk waited until the final sound disappeared. "It means some truths must be heard before they are explained." The elder looked at the empty air where the sound had been. The bell had not defended itself. It had not asked whether the village understood its meaning. It had rung because ringing was its nature. Then it had released the sound. The monk said, "When the bell rings, one person hears prayer, another hears noise, a farmer hears the end of work, a grieving woman hears the voice of someone she misses." He looked at the villagers. The bell does not become any of those meanings. The novice felt something open inside him. He had been trying to control every ear. He had forgotten the bell. We all face this. We speak honestly, but different people hear different things. One hears love, another hears rejection. One hears courage, another hears pride. We cannot enter each person and arrange our meaning correctly. We can only make sure the sound we release comes from a clear heart. The elder bowed, not deeply, but more than before. Some villagers followed him. The farmer did not. He stood beneath the fading light, still waiting for an answer that would agree with the story he had brought. The monk turned toward the meditation hall. The novice followed. Behind them, the bell became silent again. But outside the monastery, a stranger had heard it from the road. He knew nothing of the rumor. He knew nothing of the monk. Before the next morning, he would meet him for only one moment. And from that one moment, he would decide what kind of man the monk was. But outside the monastery, A stranger had heard the bell from the road. He knew nothing of the rumor. He knew nothing of the monk. Before the next morning, he would meet him for only one moment, and from that one moment, he would decide what kind of man the monk was. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The stranger had been traveling for many days. Dust covered his sandals. His shoulders ached beneath the weight of his bag. He had slept beside roads, under trees, and once inside an empty shelter where the wind entered through every wall. He was tired in the way that makes kindness harder. When the body is exhausted, the mind becomes quick to judge. A closed door feels personal. A delayed answer feels cruel. A quiet face looks unfriendly. The stranger reached the monastery just after sunrise. He had heard that travelers were sometimes given rice and water there. He expected warmth. He expected someone to welcome him. He expected relief. The gate was open. The courtyard was empty except for the monk. The monk was carrying 2 large water jars. His arms were shaking slightly beneath their weight. He had been awake since before dawn. A sick elder inside the monastery needed warm water. The kitchen fire was low. Several monks had gone to gather medicine from the forest. The monk was trying to complete many tasks before the morning meal. The stranger knew none of this. He only saw a man walking past him without stopping. "Excuse me," the stranger said. The monk heard him. He turned his head. For one brief moment, their eyes met. The monk nodded. Then he continued toward the kitchen. The stranger stood still. That was all, a nod. No welcome, no question, no offer of water. The stranger felt anger rise. What kind of monk ignores a tired traveler, he thought. He had met the monk for less than a breath. But the mind does not need much. It can take one moment and build an entire person from it. We recognize this. Someone does not smile at us. We decide they are rude. Someone answers quickly. We decide they are impatient. Someone forgets our name. We decide we do not matter to them. We often believe we are seeing character. Sometimes we are only seeing a moment of pain, a moment of fear, a moment of tiredness, a moment in a life we know nothing about. The stranger walked into the courtyard. He placed his bag down loudly. He wanted the monk to notice his anger. The monk returned a few minutes later carrying an empty jar. The stranger stepped in front of him. "Is this how you treat people here?" The monk stopped. He looked at the traveler. "I am sorry," he said. "What do you need?" The stranger heard the words, but not the exhaustion beneath them. "I need nothing from someone who cannot offer basic respect." The monk bowed. Then he looked toward the kitchen. The sick elder had begun coughing again. The sound came through the wall. "I will return in a moment," the monk said. He walked away. The stranger watched him leave. The anger grew. Of course, it grew. The mind had already chosen a story. Now every action became proof. The monk was not busy. He was dismissive. He was not caring for someone sick. He was avoiding the stranger. He was not tired. He was proud. This is how judgment protects itself. Once we decide what someone is, we stop looking for truth. We look only for evidence. The stranger picked up his bag. He should have left. Instead, he remained. Part of him wanted food. Another part wanted the monk to return so he could punish him with words. Pain often wants an audience. The novice came into the courtyard. He saw the stranger standing near the gate. "May I help you?" he asked. The stranger laughed without joy. "At least one person here knows how to. Speak." The novice felt the old urge to defend the monk, but he remembered the bell. He remembered how anger had fed the rumor, so he breathed before answering. "The monk is caring for an elder who became ill during the night." The stranger looked toward the kitchen. For a moment, uncertainty appeared. Then pride pushed it away. He could have said that. Yes, the novice said. He could have. The answer surprised the stranger. He had expected an argument. The novice continued. And you could have asked. The stranger's face tightened. The words were gentle. Still, they touched something true. We rarely notice how many questions we replace with conclusions. Instead of asking, "Are you tired?" we decide, "You do not care." Instead of asking, "Did I misunderstand?" we decide, "You meant to hurt me." Instead of asking, "What happened before I arrived?" we decide, "This moment tells me everything." Questions require humility. Judgment feels faster. The stranger sat beneath a tree. "I have traveled a long way," he said. The anger in his voice was weakening. The novice brought him water. The stranger drank quickly. A little later, the monk returned. He carried a bowl of rice and boiled vegetables. He placed it before the traveler. "I am sorry you were left waiting." The stranger looked at the food, then at the monk. "You did ignore me." "Yes," the monk said. The stranger had not expected agreement. "Then you admit you were rude." "I admit I did not stop." "Why?" The elder could not breathe well. "I was carrying water for him." The stranger looked away. The explanation should have ended the matter, but shame had entered. And shame often hides behind more anger. "You still could have spoken." "Yes." Again the monk agreed. The stranger became confused. He had prepared himself for resistance. The monk offered none. A person who does not defend every mistake gives anger less to hold. The monk sat a short distance away. "For one moment," he said, "I saw your face and knew you needed something. I also knew someone inside needed me quickly. I chose him." The stranger said nothing. The monk continued. "You saw me for one moment too." The words settled between them. The stranger understood. He had complained that the monk judged his need too quickly, but he had judged the monk just as quickly, perhaps faster. The monk had only continued walking. The stranger had built pride, cruelty, and coldness from that one act. This is one of the hardest things to see in ourselves. We often demand from others the patience we do not give them. We want people to understand our tiredness. We do not ask what weight they are carrying. We want them to see beyond our worst moment. We define them by theirs. The Buddha taught that the mind creates suffering by holding tightly to its own view. We see something, we name it. Then we forget that the name came from us. The stranger saw a monk walk past. That was the event. "He thinks he is better than me," was the story. But the story felt so real that he could no longer tell the difference. Most suffering grows in this small space, the space between what happened and what we decided it meant. Someone leaves. That happened. We were never loved is the meaning we add. Someone becomes silent. That happened. They want to punish us is the meaning we add. Someone chooses another responsibility before us. That happened. We do not matter is the meaning we add. Sometimes our meaning is correct. Often it is only one possibility. The problem begins when we mistake possibility for truth. The stranger ate slowly. The monk rose to leave. "Wait," the stranger said. The monk turned. "I judged you." "Yes." The stranger frowned. "You could pretend you did not notice." "I noticed." "And you are not angry?" A little anger arose. The stranger looked surprised. He had expected a holy answer. The monk gave him a human one. "What did you do with it?" "I watched it." "That is all?" That was enough. The monk sat again. "Anger arose when you accused me. Then I felt the need to prove myself. I wanted to tell you everything I had done since dawn. I wanted you to know I was not careless. Why did you not? Because the need passed before I obeyed it. The stranger became quiet. He thought of all the times he had obeyed the first feeling that entered him. Anger came. He spoke. Fear came. He ran. Suspicion came. He judged. He had believed feelings were instructions. The monk treated them as visitors. They arrived. They stayed. They left. This is what Buddhist practice asks us to learn. A thought is not a command. A feeling is not the whole truth. A first impression is not a complete person. We can pause. We can wait. We can let the mind become clear before we decide what we have seen. The stranger looked toward the kitchen. Is the elder safe? He is resting now. Can I help? The monk smiled. Yes. Together they carried more water. The stranger saw the monk's hands. The skin was red where the jar handles had pressed against it. He saw the tiredness around his eyes. He saw how gently the monk entered the elder's room. These things had been present before. The stranger simply had not stayed long enough to see them. How many people have we lost because we judged the first moment and never waited for the second? How many friendships ended because one sentence became the whole story? How many people still live inside our minds as villains because we never asked what happened before they hurt us? This does not mean we excuse cruelty. It does not mean we remain where we are harmed. Some actions reveal patterns. Some moments must be taken seriously. Buddhist compassion is not blindness, but wisdom asks us to see clearly before we close the door. One moment can show us something. It cannot always show us everything. By evening, the stranger prepared to continue his journey. He bowed to the monk. I thought I understood you. The monk shook his head gently. No one understands another person completely. Then how do we live together? We remain curious longer than our judgment. The stranger carried those words onto the road. He had arrived certain that the monk was proud. He left uncertain, and for the first time, uncertainty felt like freedom. But the road ahead was dark. Clouds had gathered above the hills. Rain began falling before he reached the next village. The monk, traveling to deliver medicine, found him struggling beneath the storm. Two men who had judged each other in one moment were now forced to walk the same road together. Two men who had judged each other in one moment were now forced to walk the same road together. The rain began before either of them was ready. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The stranger had left the monastery carrying the belief that the hardest part of his journey was behind him. He had been wrong about the monk. He had admitted it. He had bowed. He thought the lesson was complete. But life rarely teaches us once. It returns with the same truth, wearing different clothes. The stranger had walked only a few miles when the sky darkened. The wind moved through the trees. Birds disappeared from the road. Then the rain came hard and sudden. Within moments his robe was heavy with water. The dry earth became mud. The path that had looked simple beneath the morning sun became difficult to follow. He tried to move faster. His foot slipped. He fell against a stone and hurt his ankle. The pain rose quickly. He stood again, but each step became harder than the last. Then he heard footsteps behind him. The monk was walking through the rain with a small bundle tied beneath his robe. He was carrying medicine to a woman in the next village. The stranger watched him approach. A part of him felt relief. Another part felt shame. Only that morning he had called the monk rude and proud. Now he needed his help. This is another difficult part of being human. We sometimes need the people we judged. We sometimes fall in front of the people we tried to stand above. The monk reached him. "You are injured," he said. "It is nothing." The stranger tried to walk. His ankle gave way. The monk caught his arm. "It is not nothing." The stranger pulled away. He did not want to look weak. Pride is strange. It can make us refuse the hand that could save us simply because we do not want anyone to see that we need it. The monk said, "There is an old shrine farther along the road. We can rest there. I can manage alone." The monk looked at the storm. No one is alone in weather like this. He placed the stranger's arm across his shoulders. The stranger resisted for a moment. Then pain made the decision for him. They began walking together, slowly, one difficult step at a time. The road narrowed between the trees. Mud pulled at their feet. Rain struck their faces. The monk carried the stranger's weight without complaint. The stranger noticed this. He also noticed that the monk walked too slowly. After a while, irritation arose. "Can we move faster?" he asked. "No, the shrine cannot be far. It is farther than it looks." The stranger frowned. Again he felt the old judgment returning. Perhaps the monk enjoyed being needed. Perhaps he wanted to appear patient. Perhaps his slowness was another way of controlling the journey. The stranger had learned one lesson at the monastery, but the habit of judgment was older than the lesson. We recognize this. Understanding something once does not free us from every old pattern. We hear a teaching. We agree with it. We feel changed. Then discomfort arrives. The old mind returns. This does not mean the teaching failed. It means practice has begun. The stranger said, "You walk as though there is no urgency." The monk answered, "There is urgency." "Then why are we moving so slowly?" "Because rushing with an injured foot will make us slower." The stranger said nothing. The answer was reasonable. Still, he did not like it. Pain makes patience difficult. When we hurt, we want the world to move at the speed of our need. We want answers now, relief now, understanding now. But healing does not always obey urgency. Some roads can only be crossed slowly. They continued. The storm became stronger. A branch fell across the path ahead. The monk stopped. "We must go around." The stranger looked toward the thick forest. "There is no path there." "There will be once we walk it." The stranger wanted to argue. He was tired. His ankle burned. His bag felt heavier. He wanted the road to be clear because he had already suffered enough. But life does not remove obstacles because we feel we have earned an easier way. The monk helped him over wet roots and stones. At one point, the stranger slipped again. This time, both men fell. The medicine bundle rolled into the mud. The monk immediately reached for it. He opened the cloth. The small clay container inside had cracked. A little of the medicine had spilled. The monk's face changed. For the first time, the stranger saw fear. "The woman in the village needs this," the monk said. The stranger looked at the broken container. "I am sorry." The monk remained silent. The stranger felt something tighten inside him. He had caused the fall. He expected blame. He prepared an explanation. "The ground gave way," he said quickly. "I did not mean to pull you down." The monk continued examining the medicine. "I could not help it," the stranger said. Still, the monk did not answer. The old fear returned. The fear of being judged. The fear of being seen as careless. The stranger became defensive. "If you had walked faster, we might have reached the shrine before the rain became this strong." The monk looked at him. The stranger heard his own words. He had turned guilt into accusation. We do this more often than we admit. When shame becomes painful, we search for somewhere else to place it. We blame the weather, the road, the person helping us, anyone but ourselves. Not because we are evil, because the mind wants relief. The monk wrapped the cracked container tightly. "There is enough left," he said. The stranger waited for anger. None came. "You are not blaming me?" Would blame repair the container? No. Then we should protect what remains. The stranger looked down. The rain ran from his face like tears he had not chosen. The monk lifted the bundle. They continued walking. For a while, neither spoke. The stranger thought about the broken container. The monk thought about the sick woman. Two people can walk beside each other in the same silence and carry completely different worlds. This is why understanding is so difficult. We see the face. We do not see the whole mind behind it. The stranger said, "You were afraid." "Yes. I thought monks were not supposed to feel fear." The monk almost smiled. "Who told you that?" "I do not know. A monk feels fear. He simply practices not becoming its servant." The stranger considered this. "And anger?" "That too." "Were you angry with me?" "For a moment." "What happened to it?" "It arose. I noticed it. Then the medicine needed my attention more than the anger did." The stranger looked at the road. The monk did not deny his feelings. He did not pretend to be above them. He simply chose which one deserved his action. This is what the Buddhist path teaches. Freedom is not the absence of difficult feelings. Freedom is the space between the feeling and what we do next. Anger can arise without becoming cruelty. Fear can arise without becoming escape. Shame can arise without becoming blame. The feeling is real, but it is not the master. They reached a steep part of the road. The stranger could no longer place weight on his injured foot. The monk crouched. "Climb onto my back." The stranger stared at him. "You are carrying medicine. I can carry both." "You will fall." "Perhaps." "Then leave me here and take the medicine." The monk looked toward the dark trees. "The storm is becoming colder. I will manage." "No," the monk said. It was the strongest word the stranger had heard from him. The stranger felt anger again. "You do not decide for me." "That is true." "Then go." The monk stayed. "Why will you not listen?" "Because sometimes compassion must remain even when it is misunderstood." The words entered the stranger quietly. He had thought compassion always looked gentle. Sometimes it looked like refusal. Sometimes it said no. Sometimes it stayed when pride demanded to be left alone. The stranger climbed onto the monk's back. The monk rose slowly. They moved through the rain. Each step cost him something. The stranger could feel the monk's breathing become heavier. He wanted to apologize. The words felt too small, so he held the medicine bundle beneath his robe to keep it dry. For the first time, they were both carrying something for the other. This is how two separate lives begin to meet, not through perfect understanding, through shared weight. The road did not become shorter. The rain did not become softer. But something changed between them. The stranger stopped watching the monk for signs of pride. The monk stopped seeing him only as a man who judged too quickly. They were no longer accusation and defense. They were two tired human beings trying to reach shelter. We all know roads like this. A road shared with someone we did not choose. A family member who does not understand us. A co-worker we find difficult. A person whose wounds keep touching our own. We wish for another path. But sometimes there is only one road, and freedom does not come from making the other person become what we want. It comes from learning how to walk without turning every difference into war. The shrine appeared through the rain at last. Its roof leaned to one side. One wall was broken, but it was dry inside. The monk lowered the stranger carefully. They entered. The wind moved through the doorway. The sky outside had become almost black. The stranger placed the medicine beside the wall. The monk gathered dry leaves and small pieces of wood left by earlier travelers. He tried to make a fire. The stranger watched him. "I was wrong about you," he said. The monk looked at the wood. You were wrong about one moment. No, I made you into someone you were not. The monk struck two stones together. A small spark appeared. We all do this. You did it to me too? Yes. The stranger was surprised. What did you think? I thought you were only angry. And now? Now I think you are also tired, frightened, ashamed, proud, and capable of kindness. The stranger laughed softly. That is not a very holy description. It is a human one. The fire caught. Warm light filled the ruined shrine. Outside, the road disappeared beneath the storm. They would not reach the village that night. They would have to remain together until morning. The stranger looked at the broken doorway. The monk looked at the cracked medicine container. Neither knew what the darkness would bring, but for the first time they were not trying to decide who the other person was. They were simply there. Two men, one storm, one fire, and a long night inside an empty shrine. Two men, one storm, one fire, and a long night inside an empty shrine. We begin with the place neither of them had planned to enter. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The shrine had once been cared for by many hands. Long ago, travelers had stopped there to bow before continuing through the hills. Oil lamps had burned beside the wall. Flowers had been placed beneath a small statue. Prayers had filled the room. Now the roof was damaged. Rain entered through one corner. Dust covered the floor. The statue had lost one hand, and a crack ran across its face. The place looked forgotten, but forgotten places are not always empty. Sometimes they are only waiting for the right suffering to arrive. The monk placed more wood on the fire. The stranger sat with his injured legs stretched before him. Outside, the storm beat against the shrine as if it wanted to enter. The wind moved through the broken doorway. Rain struck the roof. Thunder rolled across the hills. Each sound made the small building feel more fragile. The stranger looked at the walls. This place may not survive the night. The monk listened. It has survived many nights already. That does not mean it will survive this one. No. The stranger looked at him. The monk had not tried to comfort him with certainty. He had simply spoken the truth. There are moments when we do not need false hope. We need someone willing to sit beside us without pretending to know what comes next. The stranger had spent much of his life demanding clear answers. Will this work? Will I be safe? Will they stay? Will the pain end soon? But life rarely answered in the way he wanted. It offered weather, change, beginnings that did not explain themselves, endings that arrived without permission. The storm grew stronger. A section of the roof shook. The stranger said, "We should leave." The monk looked toward the road. "There is no road now. We cannot remain under a roof that may fall. We cannot walk through a flood with your injured ankle." The stranger became restless. He hated choices, where neither path felt safe. Most of us do. We want the correct door, the door without loss, the door that protects us from regret. But sometimes life gives us two uncertain paths and asks us to choose without knowing. The stranger said, "So we do nothing. We stay awake. We watch the roof. We keep the fire alive. That is your plan? For now?" The stranger shook his head. It did not feel like enough. Fear often makes simple actions look useless. The mind wants a complete rescue. Breathing feels too small. Waiting feels weak. Watching feels like failure. But many difficult nights are survived through small things. One breath, one flame, 1 hour, one choice not to panic. The monk moved the medicine farther from the leaking wall. The stranger watched him. "You are worried about that woman." "Yes." "What if the medicine is ruined?" "Then I will do what I can when morning comes." "What if she becomes worse before then?" "She may." The stranger felt irritation. "How can you say that so calmly?" The monk looked at him. "I did not say it without pain." The stranger became quiet. The monk placed a hand over the medicine bundle. "I want the storm to stop. I want the road to clear. I want the woman to be well, but wanting does not command the sky." This is one of the oldest human sorrows. We love something. Then we discover that love does not give us control over it. We care for a person. We cannot prevent every illness. We build a home. We cannot stop every storm. We make promises. We cannot control time. The stranger looked into the fire. "I used to believe good people were protected." Protected from what? From suffering. The monk added a piece of wood. "Then no one would ever become good." The stranger frowned. "What do you mean?" "If goodness removed suffering, people would practice kindness only as a bargain." The stranger watched the flames bend in the wind. The monk continued. "The path does not promise that storms will avoid us. It teaches us how not to become the storm." Thunder shook the shrine. The stranger looked toward the broken statue. "What does that mean?" "It means fear may be here without becoming panic. Pain may be here without becoming cruelty. Uncertainty may be here without destroying every peaceful part of the mind." The stranger touched his swollen ankle. "That sounds easy when you say it." "It is not easy." "Then why do monks speak as if it is?" "Perhaps some monks enjoy sounding wise." The stranger laughed. The monk smiled. For a moment, the shrine felt warmer. Then part of the roof collapsed. Wood and broken tiles fell near the doorway. The fire trembled. The stranger tried to stand. Pain shot through his leg. He fell back. The monk moved quickly. He pulled him toward the far wall. Dust filled the air. Rain began entering through the new opening. The stranger's heart raced. "We have to get out." The monk looked at the roof. Another beam had shifted. This time he did not answer immediately. The stranger saw fear on his face. Real fear. Not hidden, not denied. The monk said, "We must move to the back room." A narrow opening led behind the cracked statue. They gathered the medicine and the remaining dry wood. The monk supported the stranger. Together they entered a small chamber behind the shrine. It was dark and low. There was barely enough room for them to sit. The wind sounded farther away there, but the darkness felt heavy. The stranger said, "I cannot see anything. You can hear me." "That is not enough." "It may have to be." The stranger felt the walls closing around him. He had feared small spaces since childhood. When he was young, his older brothers had once locked him inside a grain chest as a joke. He had shouted until his voice disappeared. No one came for a long time. Years had passed. The chest was gone. The darkness remained inside him. His breathing became fast. The monk heard it. "Place your hand on the floor," he said. The stranger did not answer. "Feel the ground." "I cannot breathe." "You are breathing." "No, I cannot." "Feel the ground." The stranger pressed his palm against the cold stone. "Now listen for one sound." The storm. One sound closer. The stranger listened. The monk's breathing. "Now feel one thing." The floor. "Stay with that." The fear continued. Of course it did. The body remembers what the mind believes is over. A dark room becomes an old chest. A raised voice becomes a parent's anger. A delayed reply becomes every abandonment. The present disappears beneath the past. The stranger said, "I need to leave." "You cannot walk safely yet." "I do not care. I know. I will crawl." The monk placed a hand on his shoulder. "Stay for one more breath." The stranger wanted to push him away. Instead, he took one breath. "Another," the monk said. The stranger breathed again. The fear did not vanish, but it stopped growing. This matters. We often believe healing means the feeling disappears. Sometimes healing begins when the feeling stops controlling the next moment. The stranger remained seated, His hand stayed on the floor. The monk's hand stayed on his shoulder. The darkness remained dark. Nothing outside had changed, but the stranger had not run. After a while, his breathing slowed. He said, "I thought I was back there." "Where?" "In the chest." The monk did not ask for more. He did not tell him the fear was foolish. He did not remind him that he was a grown man. He simply said, "Part of you may still be waiting to be let out." The stranger felt tears rise. He turned his face away. "I hate that this still controls me. Hatred gives it another room to live in. What should I do?" "Sit beside the frightened part. Do not lock it away again." The stranger looked into the darkness. For years he had been ashamed of fear. He had hidden it behind anger, behind judgment, behind the need to appear strong. Now there was nowhere to hide. The shrine had become small enough to contain only truth. The monk said, "When you judged me this morning, perhaps you were already tired of feeling powerless." The stranger did not answer. He knew the words were true. Judgment had made him feel above the moment. Anger had made him feel less afraid. Blame had given him somewhere to place his pain. We do this because powerlessness is difficult to hold. It is easier to say, "They are terrible," than to say, "I felt small." Easier to say, "They do not care," than to say, "I was afraid I did not matter." Easier to judge another person than to enter the abandoned shrine inside ourselves. The storm continued for hours. The two men spoke little. The monk meditated. The stranger listened to the rain. Sometimes fear returned. Each time he placed his hand on the floor. Each time he listened for the monk's breathing. Each time he stayed for one more breath. Near midnight, the stranger asked, "Do you understand me now?" The monk opened his eyes. "I understand something about your fear." "That is not the same." "No." The stranger waited. The monk said, "No person can enter every room inside another person." The stranger thought of the chest, the old road, the broken roof, the anger he had carried to the monastery. "So we are always alone?" "Not always. But you said no one can fully understand. Being fully understood is not the only way to be accompanied." The stranger became still. The monk continued, "I may not know exactly what your darkness feels like, but I can remain with you while it is here." This was new to the stranger. He had always believed love meant being perfectly understood. He believed someone had to know every reason, every wound, every hidden fear. If they did not understand, he felt abandoned. But the monk had not lived his childhood. He had never been locked inside the chest. Still, he had stayed. Perhaps presence could reach where understanding could not. Perhaps compassion did not need a perfect explanation. The stranger looked toward the small opening. A faint grey light had begun to appear. Morning was still far away, but the darkness was no longer complete. The storm weakened slowly, not all at once. First, the thunder moved farther away. Then, the rain softened. Then, the wind stopped pushing against the walls. The shrine remained damaged. The stranger's ankle still hurt. The medicine container was still cracked. Nothing had returned to how it was before, but they were alive. This is how many storms end. Not with everything restored, with enough light to see the next step. The monk crawled toward the opening and looked outside. The road may be passable soon. The stranger touched the stone floor once more before standing. The place he had wanted to escape had held him through the night. The darkness he had feared had shown him something. He did not need to be free from fear before staying. He only needed to remain for one breath longer than the urge to run. They returned to the main room. The statue stood beneath the broken roof. Rainwater moved down its cracked face. The stranger looked at it. "Do you think this shrine is ruined?" The monk considered the question. "It kept us alive." The stranger nodded. A broken place had still offered shelter. A frightened man had still shown courage. A misunderstood monk had still offered compassion. We are often too quick to call something ruined because it is no longer whole in the way we remember. But broken things may still protect. Wounded people may still love. Uncertain lives may still carry meaning. The monk lifted the medicine. The stranger tried to stand. His ankle held a little weight. Together they stepped. Outside, mist covered the road. Branches lay everywhere. The path to the village had almost disappeared. The monk looked ahead. The stranger looked back at the empty shrine. During the night, he had finally asked why the monk had stopped defending himself. The answer had not come yet. Now, as they began walking through the quiet remains of the storm, he asked the question again. The monk looked ahead. The stranger looked back at the empty shrine. During the night, he had finally asked why the monk had stopped defending himself. The answer had not come yet. Now, as they began walking through the quiet remains of the storm, he asked the question again. Why did you stop explaining yourself? Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The road was covered with broken branches. Water moved through the mud in thin streams. The world looked washed clean but not repaired. Some trees had lost limbs. One had fallen completely. The storm was over, yet its marks remained everywhere. This is how pain often leaves us. The loud part ends. The shaking stops. Morning comes. But the road still carries what happened during the night. The monk supported the stranger as they walked. His injured ankle was better than before, but each step still hurt. The stranger waited for an answer. The monk remained silent. The old anger almost returned. Almost. But the stranger had begun to notice how quickly his mind reached for judgment. The monk is avoiding me. The monk thinks I am not worthy of an answer. The monk enjoys making people wait. These thoughts appeared. This time, the stranger did not believe them immediately. He watched them arrive. He let them stand at the edge of his mind without inviting them inside. This was new. It was not peace yet, but it was the beginning of space. They continued walking. The stranger asked again, more gently, "Did someone hurt you?" The monk looked toward the road. Yes. Was it the village? Not only the village. Then who? The monk adjusted the medicine beneath his robe. Myself. The stranger frowned. He had expected a name, a cruel teacher, an unfair parent, a friend who had betrayed him. Instead, the monk had pointed inward. What do you mean? The monk stepped over a fallen branch. For many years, I believed every misunderstanding was an emergency. The stranger listened. If someone thought I was selfish, I had to prove I was kind. If someone thought I was weak, I had to show strength. If someone thought I was proud, I had to become humble in front of them. That sounds reasonable. It felt reasonable. The monk looked at him. But I was not living from truth. I was living from reaction. The stranger said nothing. The monk continued. I became whatever another person's opinion demanded. If they called him cold, he became warm. If they called him foolish, he tried to sound wise. If they called him distant, he forced himself to remain close even when he needed space. He did not know it then, but his life had become a room full of mirrors. In every mirror, someone else was holding the glass. He moved according to what they reflected. He smiled when they wanted kindness. He spoke when they wanted answers. He remained when they wanted proof of loyalty. He apologized when they wanted victory. And each time he did this, he moved farther from the quiet place inside him that knew what was true. We recognize this. Many of us have not only explained ourselves, we have changed ourselves to make the explanation believable. We have stayed in places that hurt because leaving would make someone call us selfish. We have said yes because saying no might make someone think we did not care. We have spoken when silence was needed. We have remained silent when truth was needed, not because we were dishonest, because we were afraid of becoming the wrong person inside someone else's mind. The monk said, "At first, I thought I was protecting my name. What changed? I noticed there was no end. He remembered one winter morning in the village. A woman had accused him of refusing food to her brother. It was not true. The brother had never come to his door. The monk had explained this. The woman did not believe him, so he found witnesses. The witnesses confirmed his words. Still, she said they were protecting him. He went to the brother. The brother admitted that he had never asked for food. The woman then said the monk must have frightened him into silence. The monk kept gathering truth. She kept changing the shape of the accusation. By sunset, he understood something. She was not searching for facts. She was searching for somewhere to place her pain. Her brother was hungry. She felt helpless. The monk had become a container for that helplessness. No explanation could remove what had not begun with him. The stranger asked, "Did you become angry?" "Very." "What did you do?" I explained more. The stranger almost smiled. "And then?" "I became more angry." This is how the trap works. We believe one more defense will bring relief. Instead, each defense keeps us standing inside the accusation. We repeat the false story while trying to destroy it. We study every word. We imagine every person who may believe it. We carry the misunderstanding into rooms where it was never present. Soon, the rumor is not only in other minds, it is living inside us. The monk said, "That night I could not sleep." He lay awake imagining conversations. In one, everyone apologized. In another, the woman finally understood. In another, the whole village gathered while he proved his innocence. His body was in bed. His mind was still standing before a crowd. By morning, he was exhausted. Nothing had changed outside him. But inside, he had spent the whole night fighting people who were not there. The stranger looked at the road. "I have done that. Most people have. You imagine the words you should have said." "Yes." "You win the argument when no one is present." "Yes." "And still you feel worse." The monk nodded. The stranger understood this too well. He had replayed old arguments for years. He changed his answers. He made himself wiser. He made the other person regret what they had said. But no victory inside his imagination had ever brought peace. The monk continued. "A few days later, I went to my teacher. The old teacher had listened without interrupting. The monk had explained the accusation. Then he explained his defense. Then he explained why the defense had failed. When he finished, the teacher asked one question. "Who are you when no one agrees with you?" The monk had no answer. He knew who he was when praised. He knew who he tried to become when blamed. But he did not know who remained beneath both. The teacher said, "Sit until you find the one who does not need the crowd." The stranger asked, "Did you find him?" "No." The stranger looked surprised. "Then why tell the story?" "Because I found there was no permanent person there to protect." The stranger frowned. The monk explained. When he searched for a fixed self, he found changing thoughts, changing feelings, changing memories, changing desires. The person he had tried to defend was different each day. Some days kind, some days impatient, some days brave, some days afraid. He had spent years protecting an image that could not remain still. This is what Buddhist teaching means when it speaks of no fixed self. It does not mean we do not exist. It means we are not one hard, permanent thing. We are more like a river, always present, always changing. People may stand beside the river and give it names. Calm, dangerous, beautiful, dirty. But the river continues moving. It does not stop to become every name. The stranger said, "So you stopped caring what people thought?" "No." "Then what did you stop?" "I stopped treating their thoughts as instructions." The words stayed between them. The monk still cared when someone was hurt. He still listened when criticism revealed something true. He still apologized when his actions caused suffering. But he stopped bowing to every opinion. He learned to ask different questions. Is there truth in what they said? Can I repair harm? Can my words reduce suffering? If the answer was yes, he acted. If the answer was no, he released the need to be believed. This sounds simple. It is one of the hardest forms of freedom, because the need to explain often feels like goodness. It tells us we are defending truth. Sometimes we are, but sometimes we are only defending the picture we want others to carry. The stranger asked, "How do you know the difference?" The monk looked at the medicine bundle. When truth asks me to speak, there is usually clarity. And when pride asks, there is heat. The monk touched his chest. Urgency, fear, the need to win, the wish to make the other person feel wrong. The stranger remembered the monastery courtyard. He had demanded respect. He had wanted the monk to feel ashamed. He had called it honesty, but beneath it was fear, the fear that he did not matter. The monk said, "Sometimes truth speaks firmly, but it does not need to destroy the listener." They reached a place where the road divided. One path led toward the village, the other climbed toward the hills. The monk stopped. The stranger looked at him. "Is this where we separate?" "Not yet. The village is that way. The bridge may have been damaged." The monk studied the rising water. They would need to take the longer road through the hills. The stranger sighed. Another delay, another path he had not chosen. But he did not complain, not immediately. This too was practice. The stranger asked, "Do you ever still want to explain yourself?" "Every day." The answer surprised him. "I thought you were free." Freedom is not never feeling the chain. The monk began walking up the hill. It is knowing you do not have to follow it. The stranger followed slowly. He thought of all the people who misunderstood him, his brothers, his old employer, a woman he had loved. He had carried speeches for each of them, perfect explanations, perfect defenses, words prepared for meetings that would never happen. He wondered what his life might feel like without them. Lighter, perhaps, but also frightening, because when we stop explaining ourselves, we lose the dream that one final conversation will repair the past. We must accept that some people may never see us clearly. Some stories may never be corrected. Some doors may remain closed. This is grief. But inside that grief is freedom. The monk said, "You may be misunderstood even when you are careful." The stranger nodded. "You may be judged even when you are kind." "Yes. You may tell the truth and still not be believed." The stranger felt pain rise. "Yes." The monk looked at him. "Can you still live honestly?" The stranger did not answer. The question was not asking for words, it was asking for a life. They climbed higher. Below them, the storm water moved through the valley. The stranger looked back at the road they had crossed together. He had judged the monk after one moment. The village had judged him through a rumor. The monk had survived both without becoming what they believed. Perhaps this was the answer. Not a speech, a way of walking. The stranger said, "So that is why you stopped explaining yourself." The monk shook his head. "That is why I began." "Began what?" "Listening before I spoke." The stranger waited. The monk continued. "Sometimes an explanation is needed. Sometimes silence is wiser. The freedom is not in always remaining silent." "Where is it?" "In no longer speaking from fear." The stranger looked ahead. The hill path disappeared into mist. He still did not understand the monk completely, but he understood enough to keep walking. Ahead, the rain had loosened stones along the narrow trail. One wrong step could send either man down the slope. The stranger looked at the monk and asked the question he had carried since the shrine. "What would you say if you knew your answer could finally make everyone understand?" The monk stopped. He looked toward the mist, and for reasons the stranger could not yet understand, he chose not to answer. The monk stopped. He looked toward the mist, and for reasons the stranger could not yet understand, he chose not to answer. We begin with the answer that remained inside him. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The path along the hill had become narrow. Loose stones rolled beneath their feet. On one side, wet trees climbed toward the clouds. On the other, the ground fell sharply into the valley. The stranger waited. He had asked what the monk would say if one perfect answer could finally make everyone understand. It seemed like a simple question. The monk had spoken about silence, about fear, about the need to be believed. Surely he had an answer, but he continued walking. The stranger followed. At first, he tried to be patient. Then his mind began working. Perhaps the monk did not know. Perhaps he had become tired of the conversation. Perhaps the question had exposed something he wanted to hide. The old habit returned. Silence became empty space, and the stranger's mind rushed to fill it. We recognize this. Waiting is difficult when we believe another person is holding something we need. An explanation, an apology, a reason, a final sentence that will make the past clear. We begin to believe peace is hidden behind their closed mouth. If they would only speak, we could rest. If they would only tell us why, we could move forward. If they would only admit what happened, the wound would close. But sometimes the answer we are waiting for cannot do what we are asking it to do. The stranger asked again, "Did you hear me?" "Yes." "Then why will you not answer?" The monk stepped carefully over a fallen branch. "Because the question carries a promise I do not believe." "What promise?" "That the right words can make everyone understand." The stranger frowned. "That is what I asked." "Yes." "So the answer is no." The monk looked ahead. "The answer is that no such answer exists." The stranger felt disappointed. He had expected something deeper, something he could remember, something that sounded like wisdom. Instead, the monk had removed the whole question. "That is too easy," he said. "No," the monk replied. "It is difficult because the mind keeps searching for the words anyway." They continued through the mist. The stranger thought about the people who had misunderstood him. He remembered his brothers laughing outside the grain chest while he cried in the dark. Years later, he had tried to tell them what that moment had done to him. They had called it a childhood joke. He explained the fear. They said he was too sensitive. He explained the years of panic in small rooms. They said he was blaming them for his weakness. He left the conversation more wounded than before. For years, he believed he had failed to explain it correctly. Perhaps if he had spoken more calmly, perhaps if he had chosen another day, perhaps if he had described the darkness better. He carried a perfect speech inside him, one he planned to give if they ever sat together again. The monk said, "Who are you speaking to in your mind?" The stranger looked at him. "How did you know?" "Your face changed." The stranger looked down at the road. "My brothers." "What are you telling them?" "What they did." "Do they not know?" "They know what happened. They do not know what it became inside me." The monk nodded. "And if they understood?" The stranger answered quickly, "I would be free." The monk stopped walking. The stranger stopped too. Mist moved between them. "Would you?" The question felt cruel. The stranger's face tightened. "You do not know what they did." "No." "You do not know what it is like to carry fear from something everyone else calls small." "No." "Then do not question what would free me." The monk bowed his head slightly. "You are right. I cannot know your pain completely." The stranger expected more. No defense came. The monk resumed walking. The stranger remained still for a moment. Then he followed. After some time, the monk said, "Perhaps their understanding would bring relief." The stranger said nothing. But if your freedom depends on their understanding, then they still hold the key." The words entered slowly. The stranger did not want them. Some truths arrive like guests we wish would leave. He had spent years hating his brothers for holding him in the chest. Now he saw that he had also allowed them to hold something else, the end of his suffering. He had placed his release inside their future apology. As long as they did not understand, he could not be free. This felt unfair. It was unfair. And still, it was true. The stranger said, "So I should pretend it did not matter?" "No." "Forgive them without admitting what they did?" "No." "Then what?" The monk stepped around a pool of water. "Stop asking their minds to become the place where your pain is made real." The stranger slowed. "My pain is real." "Yes." "Even if they deny it?" "Yes." "Even if no one understands it?" "Yes." The stranger looked away. His eyes had filled with tears. For most of his life he had wanted witnesses, not only to what happened, to what it had cost him. He wanted someone to look at his fear and say, "Of course you became this way." He wanted his brothers to carry some of the weight. He wanted them to feel ashamed enough to prove that his suffering mattered. This is human. When we are hurt, we want the world to agree that the wound exists. We fear that being misunderstood makes the pain less real. But pain does not require permission to exist. Grief does not become false because someone calls it too much. Fear does not become foolish because another person cannot feel it. The stranger asked, "Then why speak at all?" The monk answered, "Because words can still open doors, even if they cannot make everyone understand." "Yes." "Then why did you not answer me before?" The monk looked toward the mist. "Because I felt the need to sound wise." The stranger stared at him. The monk continued, "A sentence came to me." "What sentence?" "I will not give it now." "Why?" "Because I wanted you to admire it." The stranger almost laughed. "You stayed silent because you were proud." Pride arose. This was not the answer the stranger expected. He had imagined the monk's silence came from perfect wisdom. Instead, it had come from noticing something ordinary, the desire to impress, the desire to appear deep, the desire to become the kind of monk people remembered. The monk said, "Sometimes silence is not purity. Sometimes it is only a pause long enough to see what is speaking inside us." This is what Buddhist practice asks. Not that we become people without selfish thoughts, not that pride never appears, not that anger disappears forever. It asks us to see what has arisen before we give it our voice. A thought may enter. We do not have to build a sentence around it. An emotion may rise. We do not have to turn it into an action. The monk had almost given the stranger a beautiful answer. It might have sounded wise. The stranger might have repeated it for years, but the monk had felt the hidden hunger beneath it. He wanted to be seen as someone who possessed truth, so he let the sentence remain unsaid. The stranger asked, "Was the answer false?" "No." "Then why not say it?" True words spoken for the wrong reason can still create suffering. The stranger thought about this. He had often used true things as weapons. He had told people their weaknesses during arguments. He had called it honesty. He had revealed painful facts at the moment they would cause the most harm. He had believed truth could not be cruel, but truth carried by anger can cut. Truth carried by pride can humiliate. Truth carried by compassion can heal. The words may be the same. The mind behind them is different. The monk said, "Before speaking, I ask what wants to use my mouth." The stranger looked at him. "And if it is pride, I wait. And if it is fear, I wait. And if silence will hurt someone, then I speak even if fear is present." So there is no simple rule. No, the stranger sighed. He wanted a rule. Human beings often prefer rules because awareness requires more work. Always speak, never explain, always forgive, walk away, stay. But life does not remain still enough for one answer to fit every moment. Sometimes silence is wisdom. Sometimes silence protects cruelty. Sometimes explaining brings clarity. Sometimes it is only begging for approval. Sometimes leaving is freedom. Sometimes leaving is fear. The path asks us to look again and again. The stranger said, "How do I know when to speak?" The monk answered, "Ask whether your words are trying to serve truth or control another person's mind. And if I do not know, wait until you know more." They reached a part of the trail where the mist began to lift. Below them, the valley slowly appeared. The storm had filled the river. It moved wide and brown between the fields. The bridge ahead had been damaged, but not destroyed. Several villagers were already working near it. The monk and stranger stood above them. The stranger looked at the broken road behind, then at the path ahead. He thought of the answer the monk had refused to give. Perhaps freedom was not found in receiving every answer. Perhaps it was found in no longer making one answer responsible for an entire life. We all carry unanswered questions. Why did they leave? Why did they choose someone else? Why were we not protected? Why did the person who loved us also hurt us? Why were we judged when we were trying our best? We may receive answers. Some may help. Some may come too late. Some may never come. And there are answers that only create more questions. If our peace waits for complete understanding, it may wait forever. The Buddhist path does not promise that every mystery will be solved. It teaches that we can live without forcing every open wound into a clear story. We can say, "I do not know why." We can say, "They may never understand." We can say, "This still happened." And then we can take the next step. The stranger looked at the monk. What was the sentence? The monk smiled. "You still want it?" "Yes." "Why?" The stranger thought carefully. Before, he would have answered quickly. Now, he waited. "I want something I can carry." The monk pointed toward the medicine bundle. "You are already carrying something." The stranger laughed softly. Then he took the bundle from the monk. They began walking down toward the village. The answer remained unspoken. But the silence around it no longer felt empty. It held honesty. It held restraint. It held the freedom of not turning every truth into a performance. Ahead, villagers were gathering wood near the damaged bridge. Cold rain had left them trembling. The monk and the stranger still carried no perfect answer. But in the village below, a fire was waiting to be built. And the fire would give warmth without explaining why. And the fire would give warmth without explaining why. We begin with something that served everyone without asking to be understood. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The monk and the stranger reached the village near midday. The storm had passed, but the cold remained. Water covered parts of the road. Branches lay across the fields. Several homes had lost pieces of their roofs. People moved between the damaged buildings carrying wood, rope, bowls, blankets, and anything that might help. The villagers had no time left for rumors. Suffering had given them something more immediate to hold. Near the broken bridge, an old woman sat beneath a small shelter. Her hands were shaking. Two children stood beside her in wet clothes. A farmer tried to light a pile of wood, but the pieces were damp. Smoke rose. The flame appeared. Then it disappeared. He tried again. Nothing. The monk placed the medicine bundle in the stranger's hands. "Take this to the house beside the well," he said. "A sick woman is waiting." The stranger nodded. He wanted to remain with the monk. he still had questions. But some questions must wait when another person is suffering. He carried the medicine through the village. The woman's family received it with relief. No one asked who had carried it through the storm. No one knew that the container had cracked. No one saw the road, the fall, the shrine, or the long night. They only saw that the medicine had arrived. Sometimes the deepest acts of care enter a life without bringing their whole story with them. We often want our efforts to be seen. We want people to know how difficult the road was, how much we gave, how tired we became, how much pain we carried while helping them. This is human, but the help does not become less meaningful when no one knows its cost. The medicine still reached the sick woman. The stranger returned to the broken bridge. The monk was kneeling beside the wet wood. He separated the smallest pieces and placed them beneath the larger ones. The farmer watched impatiently. "It will not burn," he said. "It may," the monk replied. "The wood is too wet." "Some of it is wet. It is all wet." The monk picked up a thin branch and broke it open. The inside was dry. The farmer became quiet. The monk gathered more branches. He broke each one carefully. Then he placed dry grass from beneath the shelter at the center of the pile. He struck 2 stones. A spark appeared. It died. He tried again. Another spark. Again, nothing. The stranger watched him. He remembered the dark chamber inside the shrine. One breath, then another. One spark, then another. The monk did not become angry with the wood. He did not accuse the storm. He did not complain that the fire should have appeared already. He simply continued. This is what patience looks like before it becomes success. It often looks like repetition, like failure, like doing the same small thing when no result has appeared. The third spark caught the dry grass. A tiny flame rose. The wind moved toward it. The monk placed his hands around the flame without touching it. He protected it. The fire grew slowly. The smallest branches began to burn, then the larger ones. Soon warmth reached the old woman and the children. More villagers gathered. They held their hands toward the fire. Steam rose from their wet clothes. No one asked the flame what it believed. No one asked whether it was humble. No one asked why it had taken so long to appear. No one needed it to explain its nature. It gave warmth. That was enough. The stranger sat beside the monk. "The fire does not care what anyone thinks of it," he said. The monk looked at the flames. "Fire does not have a self to protect. But people do. People have an idea of a self." The stranger sighed. "You always make a simple thing difficult." The monk smiled. "And you always want a difficult thing made simple." The stranger laughed. The sound surprised him. Only 1 day earlier he had stood in the monastery courtyard filled with anger. He had believed the monk's silence was pride. Now they sat together beside a fire built from storm-soaked wood. Nothing about the monk had become easier to explain, but the stranger no longer needed him to be simple. This is a kind of freedom, not the freedom of finally understanding another person completely, the freedom of allowing them to remain larger than our judgment. A woman approached the fire carrying a child. The child's lips were pale from the cold. The monk moved aside. He gave them the warmest place. The woman did not recognize him. She had heard the rumors. She had repeated some of them. She had told her sister that the monk believed village people were foolish. Now she sat beside him without knowing who he was. The monk said nothing. He placed another piece of wood on the fire. The stranger watched closely. "Why do you not tell her?" he whispered. "Tell her what?" "That you are the monk she judged." What would that give her? A chance to know she was wrong. The monk looked at the woman holding her child. She needs warmth more than correction. The stranger felt the answer settle inside him. There are moments when being right is less important than being useful. This does not mean falsehood should always remain unchallenged. It does not mean we should accept every accusation. But wisdom asks us to understand the moment. The woman was cold. The child was trembling. Her mistake could wait. The fire could not. The monk had learned to separate the need of the moment from the need of his pride. Most of us confuse them. Someone hurts us during a crisis, and we demand an apology before offering help. Someone misunderstands us, and we withhold kindness until they admit it. Someone speaks unfairly, and we decide they no longer deserve compassion. But suffering does not always arrive in people who have treated us well. Sometimes the person who needs warmth is the same person who spoke against us. This is where compassion becomes difficult. It is easy to give kindness to those who see us clearly. It is harder to give kindness to those who have turned us into something false. The woman looked at the monk. "Thank you," she said. He bowed. That was all. She did not suddenly recognize his goodness. She did not apologize. She did not learn the whole story. The monk gave warmth and received no repaired reputation in return. The stranger felt almost disappointed for him. "You could have changed her mind," he said after she left. "Perhaps. But you chose not to. I chose the child." The stranger looked at the fire. A flame does not refuse warmth because the hands reaching toward it once carried stones. It burns according to its nature. Buddhist teaching speaks often of compassion without condition, not because conditions do not matter, because compassion that depends only on being understood is still a bargain. I will be kind if you see me correctly. I will help if you admit I am good. I will forgive if you understand my pain. I will remain peaceful if you stop judging me. These are agreements. They are not freedom. Freedom begins when our values are no longer controlled by another person's opinion. The monk did not help the villagers to prove he was compassionate. He helped because suffering was present. The stranger asked, "Do you never want people to know the good you have done?" "I do." The honest answer came quickly. "What do you do with that desire?" "I notice it." "And then?" "Sometimes I obey it." The stranger looked surprised. "You tell people?" "Sometimes." "Why?" "Because I am still learning." The monk added wood to the fire. "I am not free from every desire to be praised. I am only more able to see it before it speaks for me." The stranger appreciated this answer. The monk did not present himself as finished. He was practicing, still human, still carrying pride, fear, tenderness, and doubt. The path had not removed his humanity. It had made him more honest about it. The old woman beneath the shelter leaned closer to the fire. "Bless the person who built this," she said. The farmer pointed toward the monk. "He did." The woman smiled. "You have a gift." The monk bowed again. Praise entered the moment. He felt pleasure. He noticed it. Then he placed more wood on the fire. A few moments later, another man complained that the smoke was blowing into his face. Blame entered the moment. The monk felt irritation. He noticed it. Then he moved the wet wood. Praise and blame, warmth and smoke, both came from the same fire. This is how life works. The same action that comforts one person may trouble another. The same silence that feels peaceful to one may feel rejecting to someone else. The same truth that frees one person may frighten another. If we live only to create one response in everyone, we will never move. The stranger watched the villagers around the fire. One called it a blessing. One complained about the smoke. A child feared the sparks. A tired farmer used the flame to heat food. The fire did not become 4 different fires. People met it through their own needs. The monk had said the same thing about the bell. One person hears prayer, another hears noise. The sound remains what it is. The stranger began to understand why the monk no longer chased every opinion. To chase them all would require becoming many different people at once. It would mean warming one person without making smoke for another. Speaking enough for those who feared silence while remaining quiet enough for those who feared words. Being strong without appearing proud. Being gentle without appearing weak. Being honest without making anyone uncomfortable. No human life could satisfy every demand. The attempt itself was a form of suffering. As evening approached, the bridge workers gathered around the fire. The monk helped prepare rice. The stranger passed bowls. The farmer who had spread the rumor arrived. He stopped when he saw the monk. For a moment, neither man spoke. The stranger prepared for conflict. The farmer looked at the fire, then at the villagers eating beside it. "Did you build this?" he asked. The monk nodded. The farmer seemed uncertain. He had carried one version of the monk for so long that the real man before him felt inconvenient. Judgment prefers consistency. When someone we have called cruel behaves kindly, the mind searches for another explanation. Perhaps it is a performance. Perhaps they want praise. Perhaps there is a hidden reason. The farmer said, "Fire does not prove humility." The stranger felt anger rise. He wanted to defend the monk. He wanted to remind the farmer who had brought warmth after the storm. But the monk simply answered, "No." The farmer had expected resistance. Again, none came. He walked away, still carrying his doubt. The stranger watched him leave. "That man may never understand you. He may not. And you can accept that?" The monk looked at the fire. "I can practice accepting it." The distinction mattered. Acceptance was not one final achievement. It was something chosen again each time the pain returned. The stranger understood. Tomorrow he might judge again. Tomorrow the monk might feel the urge to defend himself. Freedom would have to be practiced in each new moment. The fire became smaller as night approached. Its work was nearly finished. It had warmed children, dried clothes, heated rice, softened the hands of tired workers. It had given everything without explaining anything. Then it began to fade. No applause could make it remain. No criticism could make its warmth false. The stranger looked into the final flames. He believed he understood the monk now. That belief made him comfortable. But understanding can become another kind of certainty, and certainty can close the mind again. The next morning, the stranger would leave the village carrying many answers. Before sunset, he would discover that they had only created more questions. The next morning, the stranger would leave the village carrying many answers. Before sunset, he would discover that they had only created more questions. We begin with a man who thought confusion meant he had failed to understand. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. Morning arrived quietly after the storm. The sky was pale. Water still rested in the fields. Smoke rose from the village homes where families had begun repairing what the wind had damaged. The fire near the bridge had become a bed of grey ash. Only one small red glow remained beneath it. The stranger stood beside the road with his bag over one shoulder. His ankle still hurt, but he could walk. The monk had delivered the medicine. The sick woman had survived the night. The bridge was damaged, but people were working together to make it safe. Everything seemed to be moving toward order. The stranger believed his mind should be doing the same. He had spent a day and a night beside the monk. He had heard teachings about silence, about judgment, about fear, about the need to be understood. He had learned that one moment could not reveal a whole person. He had learned that feelings were not commands. He had learned that another person's understanding could not be the key to his freedom. He should have felt clear. Instead, he felt more confused than before. This troubled him. We often believe wisdom should make life simpler. We imagine that one true teaching will place everything into the correct order. We want a sentence that closes the door, a lesson that ends the searching, a clear path where every step has already been named. But real understanding does not always remove questions. Sometimes it removes the false answers that had made us feel safe. The stranger approached the monk, who was washing a clay bowl near the well. "I am leaving," he said. The monk nodded. "Your ankle? It will carry me." "That is enough for today." The stranger waited for the monk to say more, a blessing, a final lesson, something he could take with him. The monk continued washing the bowl. The stranger became impatient. "Is that all?" The monk looked up. "What else do you need?" "I do not know." "That may be why you are asking." The stranger frowned. The monk placed the bowl on a stone to dry. The stranger said, "I thought I understood what you were teaching me." "What did you understand?" "That I should not judge people from one moment." "That is useful." "That I should not need everyone to understand me." "That is also useful." "That I should speak only when truth can reduce suffering." "Sometimes." The stranger became irritated. "Sometimes." "Yes. Yesterday you made it sound clear. Perhaps you made it clear." The words touched something uncomfortable. The stranger had gathered the monk's teachings like stones. He had arranged them into rules. Do not judge, do not explain, do not defend yourself, remain silent, let opinions pass. He had turned living wisdom into something hard and simple. Now the monk was placing uncertainty back into it. The stranger said, "Then tell me exactly what I should do." "In which moment?" "In life." The monk almost smiled. Life does not arrive as one moment. The stranger looked away. He did not want another difficult answer. He wanted something complete. This is one of the hidden ways we avoid freedom. We ask others to give us rules so we will not have to look deeply for ourselves. Tell me when to leave. Tell me when to stay. Tell me whether to forgive. Tell me whether to speak. Tell me if I am right. Rules can guide us, but when we use them to escape awareness, they become another prison. The monk said, "Yesterday silence helped. So silence is the answer." "No. Then what is?" "Attention." The stranger looked at him. The monk continued, "Attention to what is happening. Attention to what is rising inside you. Attention to whether your words will heal or harm." That is not an answer I can easily remember. It is not meant to replace your seeing. The stranger felt tired again. He had wanted the monk to give him a map. The monk was asking him to learn how to look at the road. The stranger said, "When my brothers deny what they did, should I remain silent?" "I do not know." The answer angered him. "You told me not to place my freedom in their understanding." "Yes. Then why not tell me to stop speaking to them?" "Because releasing the need to control their minds does not mean your truth must never be spoken." The stranger stared at him. "So I should explain." "Perhaps." The stranger laughed bitterly. "You answer everything with perhaps." "Because I am not standing inside your next moment." The stranger paced beside the well. His ankle reminded him to slow down. He ignored it. "If I explain myself, I may be trapped again." "Yes." "If I remain silent, I may hide from the truth." "Yes." "If I forgive, I may excuse them." "Perhaps." "If I do not forgive, I may remain tied to them." "Perhaps." The stranger stopped. "You have made everything worse." The monk nodded. "It may feel that way." The stranger had expected defense. Again, the monk offered none. This only made the confusion louder. He said, "Before I met you, I knew what kind of people existed." The monk listened. There were kind people and proud people, honest people and liars, strong people and weak people. I knew when someone had insulted me. I knew when I was right. And now I see fear beneath anger, pain beneath pride, uncertainty beneath certainty. The monk nodded. And this is worse. It is harder. Yes. The stranger became quiet. There it was, the truth beneath his complaint. He did not hate confusion because it was false. He hated it because certainty had been easier. Certainty allowed him to close people quickly. It allowed him to protect himself. Once he decided another person was cruel, he no longer had to remain curious. Once he decided he was right, he no longer had to examine his own actions. Once he named someone proud, every silence became proof. Confusion had reopened the doors, judgment had closed. This is why wisdom can feel uncomfortable. It does not always give us a stronger opinion. Sometimes it makes our old opinions impossible to hold. The monk said, "Confusion can be the mind noticing that its old answers are too small." The stranger looked at him. "So confusion is wisdom?" "No." The stranger sighed. The monk smiled gently. "Confusion is confusion, but it can become useful if you do not rush to escape it." "How?" "Stay curious." The stranger looked toward the road. Mist still rested over the distant hills. He remembered how quickly he had judged the monk. He had believed the first story because it gave him certainty. Now he understood how little he had known. Perhaps the same was true of his brothers. Not that their actions were harmless, not that his pain was mistaken, but perhaps they were not only cruel boys laughing outside a chest. Perhaps they had also been frightened children trying to feel powerful. Perhaps they carried shame they did not know how to face. Perhaps they truly remembered the moment differently. None of this erased what happened, but it made the story larger, and larger stories are harder to use as weapons. The stranger said, "If I understand why someone hurt me, does that mean I must forgive them?" "No." "Does it mean I should trust them?" "No." "Then what is the purpose?" "To see clearly." "And what does clear seeing give me?" "A chance not to add more suffering than the moment already contains." The stranger thought about this. When he had judged the monk, the first moment had contained disappointment. He had added pride, coldness, disrespect. He had built a whole enemy around one missed greeting. The suffering had grown because of the meaning he added. Perhaps clear seeing could stop that growth. Not every pain, but the extra pain created by the mind. The monk picked up the dry bowl. The stranger said, "I still do not know what to do." "Good." The stranger looked offended. "Good? You know that you do not know. That does not feel good. Honesty does not always feel comfortable." The monk held the bowl in front of him. "When this bowl is full, nothing new can enter." He turned it upside down. "When it is empty, it can receive." The stranger looked at the bowl. "So I should become empty. You should notice when certainty has filled you with something false." The stranger remembered the villagers, the rumor, the gate, the farmer who had seen pride in silence because he had already filled the monk with his own story. He had done the same. We all do this. We meet someone new, but we do not meet them empty. We carry old faces, old betrayals, old disappointments. The person before us speaks one sentence, and the past finishes it for them. Then we say, "I know people like you." Often we do not know them. We know the wound they touched. The stranger asked, "How do I leave without answers?" The monk pointed toward the road. "The same way you arrived, one step at a time." "That sounds too simple." "The step is simple. What you carry while taking it may not be." The stranger smiled despite himself. The monk gave him a small cloth bag of rice. The stranger accepted it. "Is this another teaching?" "It is food." The stranger laughed. This too mattered. Not everything needed to become a lesson. Not every silence held hidden wisdom. Not every kind act required a spiritual meaning. Sometimes rice was rice. A road was a road. A tired man was only tired. The mind often creates suffering by turning every moment into a message about us. Someone is quiet. It must mean something. A friend is distant. It must be our fault. A stranger looks away. They must dislike us. But much of life is not about us. The monk had carried water past the stranger because a sick man needed it. The moment had not been a statement. The stranger had made it one. He placed the rice in his bag. I may never see you again. That is possible. And I may forget what you taught me. That is also possible. Does that not make this journey meaningless? The monk looked at the road. Do you remember every fire that ever warmed you? No. Did the forgotten warmth mean nothing? The stranger felt something soften. Not every good thing had to be preserved perfectly. A teaching could enter the body and disappear from memory. A kindness could change the direction of a life, even when the giver's name was forgotten. The stranger bowed, this time not from obligation, not because monks expected respect. He bowed because something in him had become quieter. Then he turned toward the road. He walked slowly through the village. People were repairing roofs. Children carried small pieces of wood. The farmer stood near the bridge, giving instructions. The stranger saw him and felt judgment rise, proud, controlling, certain. He noticed the words. Then he looked again. The farmer was also lifting a heavy beam. His hands were bleeding. He was tired. Perhaps he was trying to help. Perhaps he also wanted control. Perhaps both were true. The stranger did not need to decide. He kept walking. This was not ignorance. It was restraint. The freedom to leave a person unfinished inside his mind. By midday he reached the edge of the village. The road opened before him. He carried fewer answers than when he had arrived, but he carried more space. Space for another possibility. Space for another person's hidden pain. Space for his own understanding to change. Still, confusion followed him. It followed him past the fields, past the river, past the point where the monastery bell could no longer be heard. By sunset, he reached another village. A woman there had already heard a version of the monk's story. It was not the version he knew. It was harsher, stranger, almost unrecognizable. He stood at her doorway and listened as she spoke. And before he could decide whether to correct her, she repeated the story in a way he had never imagined. By morning, she would send a letter warning everyone beyond the river. By sunset, he reached another village. A woman there had already heard a version of the monk's story. It was not the version he knew. It was harsher, stranger, almost unrecognizable. He stood at her doorway and listened as she spoke. And before he could decide whether to correct her, she repeated the story in a way he had never imagined. We begin with a woman who did not believe she was spreading harm. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. Her name was Mira. She lived in a small house near the river with her younger sister and 2 children. People trusted her. She remembered names. She visited the sick. She brought rice to families when someone died. She listened carefully when others spoke. Or at least she believed she did. That evening, the stranger stood beneath the roof outside her home while rainwater still dripped from the trees. His clothes were tired from the road. His ankle hurt again. Mira gave him warm tea and invited him to sit near the doorway. He had barely finished thanking her when she said, "You came from the village near the monastery." "Yes." "Then you must have heard about the monk." The stranger looked at her. "What have you heard?" Mira lowered her voice. "This is how people often speak when they want a story to feel important. They say he refuses to speak to poor villagers." The stranger felt surprise. "That is not what happened." Mira continued as if he had not spoken. "They say a farmer went to ask for help after the storm, and the monk told him ordinary people were not worth answering." The stranger stared at her. "He never said that." Mira looked uncertain for only a moment. Then she said, "Perhaps not in those exact words." This is how a false story protects itself. When the facts weaken, it moves toward meaning. Perhaps he did not say it, but that was what he meant. Perhaps no one heard the words, but everyone felt the insult. The story becomes impossible to question because it no longer depends on what happened. It depends on what someone believes happened inside another person's heart. The stranger said, "I was there." Mira placed the cup down. "You saw everything?" "No." "Then you cannot know." The stranger almost laughed. She had not been there at all. Still, she spoke with greater certainty than he did. We recognize this. Sometimes the person closest to an event speaks carefully because they know how much they did not see. The person farthest away speaks with confidence because distance has removed every difficult detail. Myra said, "My cousin heard it from a grain seller." "And the grain seller?" "From a woman who was at the monastery gate." "Was she there when the monk spoke to the farmer?" Mira paused. "I do not know." The stranger took a breath. He remembered the monk's teaching. Stay curious longer than your judgment. He wanted to correct her immediately. He wanted to tell the whole story. The storm, the shrine, the fire, the medicine, the monk's kindness. But he noticed something beneath his urgency. He wanted to prove that he now understood the monk better than she did. Pride had entered beside truth. This was how quickly the old mind returned. He waited. Mira mistook the pause for uncertainty. "You see," she said, "even you cannot defend him." The stranger felt heat in his chest. He nearly answered sharply. Then he remembered the monk asking what wanted to use his mouth. Truth, pride, anger, perhaps all three. He said, "I can tell you what I saw." Mira crossed her arms. "Tell me." The stranger described his arrival at the monastery. He admitted that the monk had walked past him. He admitted that he had felt ignored. He described his anger. The woman listened closely. When he explained that the monk had been carrying water to a sick elder, Mira frowned. "But he still ignored you." "Yes." "So the story may be true." "No. He treated you as if you did not matter. That is what I believed. And now I know there was more happening than I could see." Mira shook her head. "You are making excuses for him." The stranger felt the conversation closing. He recognized the feeling, the same one he had carried at the monastery, the strange certainty that another person's explanation was only a trick. Mira was not listening to discover what happened. She was listening to protect what she already believed. The stranger asked, "Why does this story matter to you?" The question surprised her. "What do you mean?" "You have never met the monk." "No." "Then why are you so certain he is proud?" Mira looked toward the river. Her younger sister was inside preparing rice. The children were laughing in the back room. For a moment, Mira's face changed. Not anger, pain. Then she looked back at him. Men like him always speak of peace after they have hurt someone. The stranger became still. There it was, not the whole answer, but a door. Years earlier, Mira had been married to a man who rarely raised his voice. Everyone in the village called him calm. He spoke slowly. He smiled in public. When Mira complained about his cruelty at home, people did not believe her. "He is such a peaceful man," they said. "He never argues. You are too emotional." Her husband used silence as punishment. He would refuse to answer her for days. When she cried, he sat calmly. When she begged him to speak, he looked through her as if she were not there. Then, in front of others, he spoke about patience, about self-control, about the foolishness of anger. Mira had learned something from this. Quiet men hide cruelty. Calm voices are dangerous. Silence is a weapon. When she heard about the monk, she did not hear a new story. She heard the old one returning. We often believe we are judging the person before us. Sometimes we are judging a memory. The stranger said gently, "The monk is not your husband." Mira's face hardened. "You know nothing about my husband." "No." "Then do not speak of him." "You are right." The stranger lowered his eyes. He had stepped too far. Understanding someone's wound does not give us the right to enter it without permission. Compassion must still respect the door. Mira stood. "You should rest," she said. The conversation was over. The stranger remained near the doorway. He watched the river become dark beneath the evening sky. Inside, Mira spoke quietly with her sister. He could not hear every word, but he heard the monk mentioned again. He heard the word pride, then danger. The story was growing. The stranger felt helpless. He had brought truth to her door. She had heard it as defense. He had offered another view. She had used it to strengthen her own. This is another hard lesson. Being sincere does not mean we will be received sincerely. Speaking gently does not guarantee another person will hear gentleness. We can offer truth with both hands and still watch someone turn away. The stranger thought of the monk. He finally understood why explaining could become endless. Every answer entered a different wound. Every fact was shaped by the person receiving it. One explanation could calm someone. The same explanation could make another person more suspicious. Words did not travel alone. They entered histories. That night, Mira gave the stranger a mat near the kitchen. He lay awake, listening to the river. He wanted to speak to her again in the morning. He prepared sentences. He imagined telling her about the fire, how the monk had warmed the people who judged him, how he had given medicine to a sick woman, how he had carried the stranger through the storm. Surely these things would change her mind. Then he remembered the farmer. "A fire does not prove humility," the farmer had said. "The mind can reject any evidence when its story feels necessary." The stranger asked himself why Mira needed the monk to be dangerous, perhaps believing the rumor protected her. If quiet men were always cruel, then she would never again be surprised. If silence always meant punishment, she could leave before being hurt. Certainty gave her a feeling of safety. It also kept her trapped inside the past. This is what wounds sometimes do. They create rules. Never trust someone who speaks softly. Never love someone who needs space. Never believe an apology. Never enter a room where you cannot see the door. The rule protects us once. Then it begins deciding every future moment. The stranger could see this in Mira. He could also see it in himself. He had judged the monk because he was tired and afraid of not mattering. Mira judged him because silence had once hidden cruelty. Both had taken an old wound and placed it over a new face. The stranger felt compassion. Then another thought arose. I understand her better than she understands herself. He noticed the pride inside that too. Understanding can become another way of standing above someone. We can learn the reason behind their behavior and begin treating them like a puzzle we have solved. But a person is not their wound. Mira was not only a woman harmed by silence. She was also a mother, a sister, a neighbor, a person who had survived, a person still capable of kindness, a person also capable of spreading pain. Both could be true. By morning, the village had begun stirring. Mira was already awake. She sat at a low table writing on a piece of cloth-bound paper. The stranger approached. What are you writing? A warning. About the monk? Yes. To whom? To the villages beyond the river. The stranger felt alarm. What will you say? That people should be careful. Careful of what? Men who hide pride behind silence. The stranger sat across from her. Mira, you have never met him. I do not need to touch fire to know it burns. The monk is not fire. No, fire is honest. The words were sharp, but they came from pain, not certainty alone. The stranger said, What if you are wrong? Mira continued writing. What if I am right and say nothing? This was the question holding her. She was not spreading the rumor because she wanted entertainment. She believed she was protecting others. Much harm enters the world through people convinced they are preventing greater harm. The stranger looked at the page. Then write only what you know. I know enough. No, you know what someone told you. Mira stopped. The stranger continued. You know the story made you afraid. You know it reminded you of someone who hurt you. Those things are true, but you do not know the monk's heart. Mira's hand tightened around the brush. Neither do you. That is true. The answer weakened her anger for a moment. The stranger had not claimed perfect understanding. He had learned enough not to do that. He said, I saw him help people. I saw pride arise in him. I saw anger arise too. I saw him notice both and choose kindness. Mira looked at him. So he admitted he feels pride. Yes. She lowered her eyes toward the letter. The stranger realized his mistake too late. She had heard only the piece her story needed. There, she said, even you admit it. That is not what I meant. But meaning had already moved. The sentence had entered her mind and changed shape. The stranger understood the helplessness of this. He could explain again and again. Each explanation would become more material, more words to separate, more pieces to carry away. He looked at the unfinished letter. What will you do? Mira asked. He did not know. Tear the letter? Argue? Leave? Warn the monk? Every action carried harm. The stranger thought of attention, not a fixed rule. Attention to the moment. Attention to what was rising inside. He felt fear. He felt urgency. He felt the need to control her hand. He also felt sadness. He said, I cannot stop you. Mira looked surprised. But I ask you to leave space in the letter for what you do not know. She looked at the page for a long time. Then she wrote again. The stranger could not see the words. He did not know whether she had listened. By midday, the letter was folded. Mira gave it to a messenger traveling toward the river crossing. The stranger watched him leave. A small page, a few sentences, enough to close many doors. The monk was still miles away, carrying water, sweeping leaves, and knowing nothing of the warning moving toward him. By evening, the letter would be read aloud in another village. By the next morning, it would reach the place where the monk was expected to teach. And before he ever arrived, people would already be afraid of him. By evening, the letter would be read aloud in another village. By the next morning, it would reach the place where the monk was expected to teach. And before he ever arrived, people would already be afraid of him. We begin with a letter written to prevent harm. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. Mira watched the messenger disappear along the river road. The folded letter rested inside his bag. It looked small, light enough to carry with one hand, but some things are heavier than they appear. A few words can cross a river before truth has even put on its sandals. Mira stood outside her home until the messenger became a dark shape in the distance. Then he disappeared. She felt relief. She had done something. She had not remained silent. She had warned people. This mattered to her. Years earlier, no one had warned her about the man she married. Everyone had praised his calmness, his soft voice, his quiet manner. People said she was fortunate. They did not know how silence changed inside their home. They did not know how he could make an entire room feel cold without raising his voice. They did not know how many nights she begged him to answer while he sat as if she were not there. Mira had promised herself something after leaving him. If she ever sensed danger again, she would speak. She would not become one of the people who saw signs and said nothing. The promise had once protected her. Now it was guiding her toward a man she had never met. This is how old vows can become new chains. A promise made in pain may save us once. Then years later, it may continue acting after the danger has changed. Never trust silence. Never ignore a warning. Never wait until you know everything. These rules had helped Mira survive, but survival rules do not always know when the war is over. The stranger remained near her doorway. He had watched the letter leave. He felt that something harmful had begun. He also knew he could not be certain. Perhaps the village would read the letter carefully. Perhaps they would ask questions. Perhaps the monk would speak for himself. Perhaps nothing would happen. But the stranger had learned that rumors rarely remain still. He said, "What exactly did you write?" Mira turned toward him. "I wrote what people should know." "That is not what I asked." She looked tired. "I wrote that a monk from the hill monastery may come to teach. I wrote that he has been accused of pride and of refusing to answer ordinary people." "Did you write that you never met him?" Mira did not answer. The stranger felt anger rise. "Did you?" "I wrote that the story came from people near the monastery. That makes it sound confirmed. It came from several people. Several people repeating the same rumor are not several witnesses." Mira's face tightened. "You think I do not understand the difference?" "I think fear has made the difference smaller." The words were too sharp. He knew it as soon as he said them. Mira stepped back. "And now you understand my fear better than I do?" The stranger lowered his eyes. "No." "Then stop speaking as if you can see inside me." He had done the very thing he had learned not to do. He had reduced her to a wound, a frightened woman, a person trapped in her past. Some of that was true, but it was not all of her. This is how easily insight becomes pride. We learn one thing about human pain and begin believing we can explain everyone. We recognize a pattern and stop seeing the person. The stranger said, "You are right." Mira looked surprised. He continued, "I do not know everything inside you. I only know the letter may cause harm. And saying nothing may also cause harm." Yes. They stood between two fears. The fear of warning people unfairly. The fear of failing to warn them at all. Many moral choices live in this place, not between good and evil, between two possible harms. We want certainty. We want to know which action will leave our hands clean. But sometimes there is no clean path. Only attention, humility, and the willingness to repair what our choice creates. Mira said, "What would you have done?" The stranger thought about the question. Before meeting the monk, he would have answered quickly. Now he knew that quick answers often came from the part of the mind that wanted to escape uncertainty. "I do not know," he said. Mira shook her head. "That is easy. You can doubt because you do not have to protect anyone." The stranger felt the accusation. He wanted to defend himself. He wanted to tell her about his brothers, about the chest, about how fear had shaped his whole life. But he stopped. His suffering did not need to become evidence in every argument. He said, "Perhaps you are right." Mira looked at him carefully. The conversation had nowhere else to go. The stranger left before midday. He followed the river road in the same direction as the messenger. His ankle hurt. He walked anyway. He told himself he only wanted to know what happened to the letter. But beneath that was another desire. He wanted to repair the story. He wanted to reach the village before the words did. He wanted to stand in front of everyone and explain the monk correctly. The old hunger had returned wearing a new robe. This time it called itself responsibility. We often rename our attachment so we can continue obeying it. Control becomes care, pride becomes justice, fear becomes wisdom. The stranger walked faster. The messenger had a horse. He did not. By sunset, the stranger reached the river crossing. The messenger was already gone. A boatman remembered him. "He crossed before noon," the boatman said. "Did he say where he was going?" "The village beyond the bamboo fields." The stranger looked at the river. The water was still high from the storm. The ferry had stopped for the evening. He would have to wait until morning. The letter would arrive first. Again. The stranger sat beside the river. He watched leaves move through the current. He thought of the monk. A mind already full of its own story cannot receive your explanation. He had heard this lesson. He had even understood it. Now he wanted to cross a swollen river to explain. Understanding does not erase habit. The stranger felt helpless. He hated helplessness. So he began preparing his speech. He would tell the village that the monk had carried medicine through a storm, that he had built a fire for people who judged him, that he had admitted pride without becoming ruled by it, that his silence was not contempt. Then another thought came. What if they believe I am his follower? What if they think he sent me? What if every defense makes the warning seem more serious? The stranger remembered how he had once seen guilt in every act of calm. The village might do the same. He looked at the river. The water did not hurry because he was anxious. Night came. He slept badly beneath a tree. Across the river, the messenger entered the village before darkness. The village was larger than Mira's. It had a meeting hall, a school for children, a market square. The monk had been invited there weeks earlier to speak about peace after loss. Many people planned to attend. Some had lost homes in the storm. One family had buried a child that season. An old man had lost his wife. A young mother had lost the feeling that she could continue. They were waiting for words that might help. Then the letter arrived. The village elder opened it beneath an oil lamp. Several people gathered around him. He read silently at first. His face changed. "What does it say?" someone asked. The elder hesitated. This was the moment when the letter could have stopped. He could have asked who Mira was. He could have asked whether she had met the monk. He could have kept the warning private until he knew more. Instead, he read it aloud. The room became quiet. The words were not wild. They did not call the monk evil. They did not accuse him of crimes. This made them more believable. The letter said he had been accused of pride, that he used silence to avoid honest questions, that several villagers had felt looked down upon, that people should be cautious. Fear often enters most easily when it sounds reasonable. A man near the door said, "I knew something was wrong." He had known nothing before the letter. Now he remembered a feeling. A woman said, "Monks can hide behind robes." Another said, "Why would someone send a warning without reason?" The question moved through the room. No one asked whether the reason was true. They asked why anyone would write it if it were false. This is how intention becomes proof. She was trying to protect us. Therefore, the warning must be accurate, but sincere people can still be mistaken. A good intention does not make every conclusion true. The elder folded the letter. "We should cancel the teaching." Some agreed immediately. Others were uncertain. One old woman said, "Should we not speak to the monk first?" A younger man answered, "And allow him to charm us." The old woman became quiet. Fear had already changed the meaning of listening. To hear the monk would now appear foolish. To question the letter would appear careless. The village was not deciding only what was true. It was deciding who would be blamed if something went wrong. This is another reason people follow warnings, not because they fully believe them, because they do not want to be the person who ignored them. The elder said, "We will close the meeting hall tomorrow." The news spread before dawn. The teacher at the school heard it. then the grain cellar, then the families repairing their roofs. By morning, the monk had become a dangerous man in a village he had never entered. Children heard their parents speak his name. They did not know what pride meant. They only knew the doors would remain closed. The stranger crossed the river at first light. He walked quickly through the bamboo fields. When he reached the village, he saw people gathered near the meeting hall. A wooden bar had been placed across the doors. The elder stood outside. The stranger approached. "I came about the monk." The elder looked at him with suspicion. "Did he send you?" "No." "Are you his student?" "No." "Then why are you defending him?" The stranger paused. He felt every eye turn toward him. This was the moment he had prepared for. The speech waited inside him, but now he could feel the need beneath it. He wanted to make them understand. He wanted to defeat the letter. He wanted to restore the monk's name. He remembered the question, "Are your words trying to serve truth or control another person's mind?" "Perhaps both." The stranger said, "I met him." The elder crossed his arms. "And?" "I judged him wrongly." Someone in the crowd whispered, "So he deceived you." The stranger felt the trap close. "No, I saw more." "What did you see?" "A man carrying medicine, a man helping strangers, a man who admitted his own pride." The crowd reacted to the final word. "He admitted it? That is not what I meant." But the piece had already separated from the whole. The elder said, "The letter warned us about this." The stranger understood. Anything he said could be fitted into the story. Kindness became performance. Silence became pride. Honesty about pride became confession. The stranger had reached the village. The truth had reached with him, but the minds before him were full. He looked at the closed hall. Behind those doors, empty mats waited for people who needed comfort. The monk would arrive by evening. He would see the locked building. He would see the eyes turning away. He would not know about Mira's pain. He would not know how the letter had been shaped by a marriage, a memory, and a promise made years earlier. He would only see the doors. And by sunset, those doors would not be the only ones closed to him. And by sunset, those doors would not be the only ones closed to him. We begin with a village that decided who the monk was before he arrived. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The monk reached the first house near the edge of the village while the evening light was turning gold. He had walked since morning. The medicine had been delivered. The storm had damaged the lower road, so he had taken the longer path through the hills. Mud covered the bottom of his robe. A small cut marked one hand where a branch had caught him. He was tired, but he had been invited to speak about peace after loss, and he believed. People would be waiting. The first house had its door open. A woman stood inside grinding herbs. When she saw him, she stopped. Their eyes met. The monk bowed. The woman reached for the door. For one moment, he thought she was coming outside to greet him. Instead, she closed it. The wooden sound was small, but it carried something larger. The monk stood there for a breath. Then he continued walking. At the next house, 2 children were playing near the road. One saw his robe and ran inside. The other followed. Their father appeared in the doorway. "The meeting has been cancelled," he said. The monk bowed. "Is someone ill?" The man looked away. "No." "Was the hall damaged in the storm?" "No." The monk waited. The man did not explain. Then he closed the door too. We recognize this. There is a particular pain in being rejected without being told why. A person becomes distant. A room changes when we enter. A friend answers differently. Doors close, but no one gives us the key to what happened. The mind begins searching. What did I do? What did they hear? Who spoke? What part of me has been decided without me? The monk felt these questions arise. He did not pretend they were absent. He felt confusion first, then embarrassment, then the old urge to explain himself, even though no accusation had yet been spoken. The body often prepares its defense before the mind knows the charge. The monk continued toward the meeting hall. More doors closed, not every door. Some people only watched. Some lowered their eyes. Some whispered after he passed. One old man remained seated outside his house. He did not greet the monk, but he did not go inside either. The monk bowed to him. The old man gave a small nod. This was the only welcome. Sometimes when an entire world appears closed, one small human gesture keeps us from believing the rejection is complete. The monk reached the meeting hall. A wooden bar crossed the doors. The stranger stood nearby with the village elder. The stranger's face showed relief when he saw him. Then shame. He had tried to correct the story. He had failed. The monk understood this before any words were spoken. "What happened?" he asked. The elder held Mira's letter. "We received a warning." "About me?" "Yes." The monk looked at the folded page. "What did it say?" The elder studied him. "That you refuse honest questions, that you hide pride behind silence, that villagers near your monastery felt insulted." The monk listened. He did not interrupt. The stranger watched him carefully. The village watched too. Everyone was waiting for a reaction. Anger would prove the warning. Calmness might also prove it. This is the trap of a fixed story. Whatever the person does becomes evidence. If they defend themselves, they are aggressive. If they remain silent, they are hiding something. If they apologize, they admit guilt. If they refuse, they are proud. Once a mind becomes certain, no response can enter freely. The elder asked, "Do you deny it?" The monk felt the familiar heat in his chest, the need to answer clearly, quickly, perfectly. He wanted to explain the farmer, the rumor, the gate, the sick elder, the storm, the fire. He wanted to show the entire path that had brought these words to the village. Then he noticed something. The people before him were not all the same. Some were afraid, some were curious, some were eager to judge, some were only following the crowd. One answer would enter many different minds. He said, "I deny that I believe village people are beneath me." The elder waited. The monk continued, "I do not deny that pride arises in me." Whispers moved through the crowd. The stranger closed his eyes briefly. He knew what would happen. A man near the hall said, "Then the letter was true." The monk looked at him. "Pride arising is not the same as obeying it." The man laughed. "That sounds like something a proud person would say." The crowd shifted. The monk felt the urge to defend himself again. It came stronger this time. He had walked far. He was tired. He had been invited. He had prepared teachings for grieving people. Now the doors were barred because of a story carried by strangers. Pain asked for a voice. The monk breathed. This is where practice becomes real, not beneath a quiet tree, not in a room where everyone agrees. Practice becomes real when we are seen wrongly and still must decide who we will become next. The elder said, "Why should we trust you?" The monk answered, "You should not trust me only because I wear a robe." This surprised them. "You should watch my actions, listen carefully, question what I say, but do not trust fear more quickly than truth." The elder looked at the letter. "Are you saying the woman who wrote this is lying?" "No." The crowd became confused. "Then what are you saying?" "She may be sincere and mistaken." The elder frowned. "She says she is protecting us. She may believe that." "And you think you understand her better than she understands herself?" "No." The monk's answer came gently. "I have never met her." The stranger looked at him. This was important. The monk did not turn Mira into an enemy. He did not call her cruel. He did not make her smaller to make himself appear innocent. He left room for what he did not know. The elder said, "Then you cannot judge her warning. I can ask whether it is true. And if we refuse to hear you, that is your choice." The words moved through the crowd. Some heard respect, others heard pride. Again, the monk could not control the meaning. The elder said, "The hall will remain closed." The monk bowed. A pain moved through him, not because he had lost the chance to appear wise, because people who had asked for help were still suffering. The old man who had lost his wife stood near the back. The young mother who could barely rise each morning watched from beside a wall. A family whose child had died remained together beneath a tree. The monk knew some of their stories. They had sent messages to the monastery before the storm. He had come for them. Now fear stood between them. He looked at the elder. "May I speak outside?" The elder hesitated. "The hall is closed." "I see that." "Then return to your monastery." The monk could have argued. The village road was public. The people had invited him. The letter had no proof. But forcing himself into the moment would not create listening. It would only create another wound. He bowed again. Then he walked away from the hall. The stranger followed. "I am sorry," he said. The monk kept walking. "I tried to explain. I know. I made it worse." "Perhaps." The stranger almost objected. Then he understood. The monk was not blaming him. He was leaving room for uncertainty. They stopped beneath a large tree near the edge of the village. The monk placed his small bag on the ground. The stranger asked, "Are you leaving?" "I do not know yet." "You cannot stay where every door is closed." The monk looked toward the houses. "Not every door." The stranger remembered the old man's nod. "That is barely a welcome." "Sometimes barely is enough to begin." The monk sat beneath the tree. The stranger sat beside him. For a while neither spoke. People continued watching from a distance. The village elder remained near the hall. The wooden bar stayed across the entrance. The stranger said, "Does this not make you angry?" "Yes." "Then say something." "To whom?" "To me." The monk looked at the ground. "I am angry that a story arrived before I did." The stranger listened. "I am angry that people who asked for help are now afraid to receive it." The monk's voice remained calm, but the pain inside it was clear. "I am angry that part of me still wants to walk back to the hall and make them ashamed." The stranger looked surprised. "You want that?" "Yes." "What stops you?" The monk answered slowly. "The knowledge that shame rarely opens what fear has closed." This is something we often forget. When people misunderstand us, we may want to punish them with the truth. We imagine a future moment when they realize how wrong they were. We want them embarrassed, sorry, small. We call this justice. Sometimes it is only wounded pride searching for balance. The monk did not deny the desire. He watched it. He allowed it to be present without giving it the road. The stranger asked, "What will you do instead?" "Wait." "For what?" "To see whether anyone comes." The stranger looked at the closed houses. "No one will come." The monk looked at him. "You once believed I was proud after one moment." The stranger lowered his eyes. "People can change." "Yes, but not always." "Yes." The monk leaned back against the tree. The evening deepened. A breeze moved through the wet leaves. The stranger thought of the fire. It had not asked who deserved warmth. Now the monk sat outside a village that had rejected him. He could leave. No one would blame him. But perhaps compassion sometimes meant remaining near a closed door without forcing it open, not knocking endlessly, not begging, only being available if fear loosened. The monk took out a small piece of bread. He broke it in half. He gave one piece to the stranger. They ate in silence. The village watched. A woman whispered, "He is waiting for us to feel guilty." A man answered, "It is another performance." The story continued changing. Even stillness became manipulation. The monk heard some of it. He did not respond, but silence was no longer easy. This is important. We sometimes imagine spiritual freedom as a state where nothing hurts. The monk was hurt. Each closed door touched the old place inside him that had spent years begging to be seen correctly. The difference was not that the wound had disappeared. The difference was that he no longer allowed the wound to choose every action. Night began covering the village. One by one, lamps appeared behind closed windows. The stranger said, "We should find shelter." The monk nodded. "There is no shelter here. There may be beneath the hall roof. They will not want us there." The stranger looked toward the road. "We could return to the empty shrine. It is too far." They remained under the tree. Then a small sound came from behind them, a door opening. The old man who had nodded earlier stepped outside. He carried a blanket. He crossed the road slowly. The whole village seemed to notice. The elder called to him, "Where are you going?" The old man did not answer. He reached the tree and held out the blanket. "For the cold," he said. The monk bowed deeply. "Thank you." The old man looked at him for a long moment. "My wife died 3 months ago. I heard. She believed you might help me understand why I am still angry with her." The monk did not ask why. He did not offer a teaching. He only moved aside beneath the tree. The old man sat. 3 people now rested in the darkness. The village doors remained closed, but one person had crossed the road. This is how walls begin to change, not always through a crowd, sometimes through one person willing to carry a blanket into the place everyone else fears. The old man said, "I do not know whether the letter is true." The monk answered, "You do not have to decide tonight?" The old man breathed out slowly. "No one has said that." The village had demanded a choice, trust or fear, open or close, innocent or proud. The monk offered something else, time, the freedom not to decide before the heart had seen enough. Behind a nearby house, a child was listening. She had heard the adults call the monk dangerous. She had also watched the old man sit safely beside him. Children notice the distance between what people say and what people do. The child waited until her mother turned away. Then she opened the door. She carried a small bowl of rice across the dark road. And while the whole village watched from behind its walls, she walked toward the monk without fear. And while the whole village watched from behind its walls, she walked toward the monk without fear. We begin with a child who had not yet learned to distrust what she had never met. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The bowl was small. The child carried it with both hands because it was still warm. Steam rose from the rice and disappeared into the cold air. Her name was Anya. She was 8 years old. Her mother had told her not to leave the house. The village elder had warned everyone to stay away from the monk. Some said he was proud. Others said he used silence to make people feel small. One woman claimed he could turn every question around until the person asking felt foolish. Anya had listened to all of it, but children listen differently from adults. They hear the words. They also watch the faces speaking them. She had noticed that no one telling the story had actually sat beside the monk. She had noticed that the old man had crossed the road with a blanket and had not been harmed. She had watched the monk break his bread in half and give some to the stranger. She had seen him make room beneath the tree. The adults had given her a warning. Her own eyes had given her a question. Sometimes freedom begins there, not in certainty, in the quiet courage to ask whether what everyone believes is true. Anya walked slowly. Her bare feet touched the cool earth. Behind her, the door remained open. Her mother had not noticed yet. The stranger saw her first. He stood quickly. The movement frightened her. She stopped. The rice shook inside the bowl. The monk raised one hand toward the stranger. The stranger sat again. The monk did not call the child closer. He did not smile too widely. He did not try to prove he was safe. He waited. This matters. When someone is afraid of us, our urgency to be trusted can make the fear worse. We move too quickly. We explain too much. We say, "You have no reason to be afraid." But fear does not leave because it has been corrected. Sometimes the kindest thing we can offer is space. Anya looked at the monk. "Are you hungry?" she asked. "Yes." "My mother made too much rice." This was not true. Her mother had made enough for the family. Anya had taken part of her own meal. Children sometimes lie to protect the dignity of their kindness. The monk bowed his head. "Thank you." She stepped closer and placed the bowl before him. The monk did not touch it immediately. He asked, "Have you eaten?" Anya nodded too quickly. The old man, beside the monk, noticed. So did the monk. He looked at the bowl, then at the child. "Would you share it with us?" Anya looked surprised. "It is for you." Food often tastes better when no one eats alone. The monk divided the rice into 4 small portions, one for Anya, one for the stranger, one for the old man, one for himself. There was not much, but the bowl became enough because no one tried to keep the largest share. We often believe abundance means having more. Sometimes it means needing less for ourselves. Anya sat beneath the tree. The stranger gave her his place on the blanket. The old man asked her about school. She told him she liked drawing birds but disliked numbers. The monk listened. No one spoke about the letter. No one asked whether he was proud. For a few moments the village's fear did not exist beneath that tree. There was only warm rice, a cold evening, an old grieving man, a tired traveler, a misunderstood monk, and a child who had opened one door. Her mother noticed the empty bowl first. Then she saw the open door. "Anya?" There was no answer. She stepped outside. When she saw her daughter beneath the tree, fear entered her face. "Anya!" The child turned. Her mother ran across the road. She pulled Anya to her feet and placed herself between the child and the monk. "What are you doing?" "I brought him rice." "I told you not to leave." "He was hungry." "That does not matter." The words came out before the mother knew what she was saying. The monk heard the fear beneath them. Anya heard only the unfairness. "It does matter." Her mother gripped her shoulder. "You do not know this man." "Neither do you." The whole road became quiet. A child had spoken what many adults were avoiding. The mother's face changed. Embarrassment joined fear. She looked toward the houses. People were watching. She felt judged. And because she felt judged, she became harsher. "Go inside." "But now," Anya's eyes filled with tears. The monk said gently, "Listen to your mother." The child looked at him. "Why?" "Because she is frightened." "I am not." "No, but she is." The mother stared at the monk. She had expected him to challenge her. Perhaps she had prepared for it. If he encouraged the child to disobey, the warning would be proven. If he accused her of fear, she could call him arrogant. Instead, he had protected her authority without pretending her fear was truth. Anya picked up the empty bowl. She walked back toward the house. Before entering, she turned. "Will you still be here tomorrow?" The monk answered, "I do not know." The child looked disappointed. Then the door closed. This time, the sound was not the same as before. The first doors had closed in rejection. This one closed around a question. And questions are not walls. They are openings that have not yet found their shape. The mother stood inside the house, breathing quickly. Anya placed the bowl on the table. "You could have been hurt," her mother said. "He did not hurt me. You were there only a few minutes. You have never been near him at all." The mother turned away. Children can be difficult because they have not yet learned how to protect adult certainty. They ask the question beneath the rule. Why? How do you know? Did you see it yourself? Adults often call this disrespect. Sometimes it is only clear seeing. The mother said, "Everyone cannot be wrong." Anya sat near the wall. "Everyone once said grandmother would not survive the winter. That is different. Everyone said the storm would miss us. That is also different. Everyone said the old bridge was safe." Her mother became quiet. The bridge had nearly collapsed. Anya was not trying to win. She was trying to understand why the number of people believing something made it true. This is one of the first lessons society teaches us. If enough people say it, accept it. If the whole village closes its doors, there must be danger. But crowds can share fear. Crowds can repeat mistakes. Crowds can protect lies without knowing they are lies. The Buddhist path does not teach us to reject everyone. It teaches us to see for ourselves, to listen, to examine, to notice what is true in our own direct experience. The Buddha did not ask people to believe simply because others believed. He asked them to look at what creates suffering and what reduces it. Anya did not know these teachings, but she had practiced something close to them. She had heard the warning. Then she had looked. She had seen a hungry person. She responded to what was before her. Outside, the stranger watched the closed door. "She was brave," he said. The monk looked at the final grains of rice. Yes. She was not afraid of what everyone said. She was afraid. The stranger frowned. She did not look afraid. Her hands were shaking when she approached. The stranger had not noticed. The monk had. Then why did she come? Because courage is not always the absence of fear. The old man nodded. Sometimes it is caring about something more. The monk looked toward the house. The child had cared about hunger more than the rumor. This is why children sometimes cross distances adults cannot. Their identities are not yet fully tied to being right. They can change their minds without feeling destroyed. They can meet someone new without carrying as many old faces. But childhood is not perfect wisdom. Children can be cruel. They can repeat what they hear. They can fear what they do not understand. The difference is that their stories are often less fixed. A new moment can still enter. The stranger said, "One child will not change the village." No. Then what did her kindness accomplish? The monk looked at the empty bowl. It fed 4 people. The stranger smiled. Again he had wanted a larger lesson. The monk returned him to the simple act. We often dismiss small goodness because it does not transform the whole world. One meal cannot end hunger. One apology cannot repair every wound. One open door cannot change an entire village. But the person who is fed is still fed. The person who is seen is still seen. The door that opens is still open. Not every act must become a movement to have meaning. Night deepened. The old man returned to his house. The stranger and monk remained beneath the tree. Behind closed doors, conversations began. Some villagers criticized the mother for allowing her child outside. Others said the monk had used the child to make himself appear kind. One man claimed the whole scene had been planned. Fear is creative. When reality does not support it, it invents hidden intentions. But not everyone agreed. A woman who had watched from a window said, "He told the child to obey her mother." Her husband answered, "That could be part of the trick. But he shared the rice, so people would see. He did not know we were watching. People like him always know." The story bent around every fact, yet something had changed. Before Anya crossed the road, the village had only the letter. Now it had a memory of its own. The villagers had seen the child approach. They had seen the monk wait. They had seen him share the rice. They might explain it away, but they could not truthfully say nothing had happened. Direct experience had entered the rumor, and even when rejected, experience leaves a mark. Inside her home, Anya's mother sat awake. Her daughter had fallen asleep. The woman looked at the empty bowl. She remembered the monk's words. "Listen to your mother because she is frightened." He had not mocked her. He had not called her foolish. He had seen her fear without using it against her. This troubled her more than anger would have. Anger would have fit the warning. Kindness did not. When a person behaves differently from the story we carry, we face a choice. Change the story, or change the meaning of their behavior so the story can survive. The mother was not ready to let go of the warning, but she was no longer fully inside it. A small uncertainty had appeared. The next morning, Anya woke before sunrise. She went to the door. Her mother was already there. They looked toward the tree. The monk was still sitting beneath it. The stranger slept nearby. Anya's mother held a small pot of tea. She did not know whether she believed the monk. She did not know whether opening the door was wise. But she remembered the cold. She remembered the rice. She remembered how he had protected her from shame when he could have exposed it. Slowly, she lifted the wooden bar. The door opened, not fully, only enough for one person to step through. Anya smiled. Her mother looked at her. "Stay here." This time she crossed the road herself. She carried the pot of tea toward the monk. Behind her, other doors remained closed. But one door had opened twice, and soon a bowl of rice would be shared without a single question. Behind her, other doors remained closed, but one door had opened twice, and soon a bowl of rice would be shared without a single question. We begin with a meal that asked no one to prove who they were. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. Anya's mother crossed the road carrying a small pot of tea. The morning was cold. Mist rested between the houses. The monk sat beneath the tree with his robe pulled around his shoulders. The stranger was awake now, though he had not yet stood. He watched the woman approach. The day before, she had rushed across the same road in fear. She had pulled her daughter away. She had looked at the monk as if he were a danger she needed to place herself between. Now she came alone, not because all her fear had disappeared. It had not. Fear rarely leaves in one clean moment. It loosens slowly. One question, one memory, one act that does not fit the story. The woman stopped several steps from the tree. "I brought tea," she said. The monk bowed. "Thank you." She waited. Perhaps she expected him to say more. Perhaps she expected a question. "Why did you close your door? Why did you believe the letter? Why did you pull your child away?" But the monk asked none of these. He moved aside and made room near the blanket. The woman placed the pot on the ground. "I cannot stay," she said. The monk nodded. She remained standing. The stranger noticed the confusion on her face. She had prepared herself for judgment. When judgment did not come, she did not know where to place her defense. This happens to us. We enter a conversation carrying reasons. We have prepared explanations. We are ready to prove why we acted as we did. Then the other person does not accuse us. The defense remains in our hands with nowhere to go. Sometimes this feels like relief. Sometimes it feels more uncomfortable than blame. The woman said, "I was protecting my daughter." "I know. You do not know me." "No." The answer was simple, not cold, not offended. The monk did not pretend to understand her completely. He did not say, "I know exactly how you feel." Some people say this too quickly. They mean kindness. But another person's fear has a history we have not lived. The monk only knew what he had seen, a mother frightened for her child. That was enough. The woman looked toward her house. Anya stood in the doorway watching. The woman lowered her voice. She does not understand danger. Children often see some things adults no longer see. The woman's face tightened. And adults see dangers children cannot. Yes. Again, the monk did not fight her. Two truths could exist together. The child had seen hunger. The mother had seen risk. Neither needed to become foolish for the other to be real. The stranger watched this carefully. Before meeting the monk, he believed every disagreement had one winner. Someone was right. Someone was wrong. Someone understood. Someone did not. But human life often carries two truths in the same bowl. A mother can be too afraid and still be loving. A child can be innocent and still be brave. A monk can feel hurt and still choose kindness. The woman poured tea into 3 cups she had brought. One for the monk, one for the stranger, one for herself. Then she sat. She had said she could not stay. Still, she stayed. The monk lifted his cup. Steam touched his face. No one spoke. For several minutes, they simply drank. The woman looked toward the road. The stranger looked at the houses. The monk watched the steam rise and disappear. The silence was not empty. It was not punishment. It did not demand an answer. It held them without deciding who was right. This was new for the woman. Her husband had used silence to frighten her. The village had used silence to reject the monk. But this silence was different. No one was being pushed out of it. A silence can be a wall. It can also be a room where no one has to perform. The woman finished her tea. She stood. "Thank you for sharing the rice with Anya." The monk bowed. "Thank her for bringing it." The woman looked at him. She took part of her own meal. "I thought she might have. She said we made too much." The monk smiled gently. She wanted her kindness to look smaller. The woman almost smiled too. Then she returned to her house. She left the teapot beneath the tree. The stranger watched her go. "You could have asked about the letter." "Yes." "You could have told her she was wrong." "Yes." "Why did you not?" The monk looked into his cup. She did not come to answer for the whole village, but she believed the warning. Perhaps she still does. Then what changed? She brought tea. The stranger sighed. Again the monk returned to the action before them. Not the complete change the stranger wanted. Not a public apology. Not the village opening every door. Only tea. This is how many hearts begin to soften, not through a great confession, through a small act that says, "I am no longer completely closed." Later that morning, the old man returned. He carried a bowl of rice. The bowl was larger than the one Anya had brought. He placed it beneath the tree. "My neighbor cooked too much," he said. The stranger smiled. The monk did not question the excuse. Soon, another woman came with boiled vegetables. Then, a boy brought water. None of them remained long. None asked whether the monk was proud. None mentioned Mira's letter. They placed food down and returned home. The stranger looked at the growing meal. Everyone is pretending this food is extra. Perhaps that makes giving easier. Why? Because kindness can feel dangerous when the crowd has chosen suspicion. The villagers were not ready to say, "We trust you." They were not ready to admit the story may have been wrong, but they could say there was too much rice. They could say, this water needed carrying. They could give without changing their public position. Sometimes people approach truth from the side because walking directly toward it would cost too much pride. The monk did not expose them. He accepted the path they were able to take. This is compassion too, not forcing another person to confess before receiving their goodness. By midday, 6 people sat beneath the tree. Anya, her mother, the old man, the stranger, the monk, and a young farmer whose family had lost part of their roof. The bowl of rice rested at the center. The monk divided it. No one asked where each portion came from. No one asked who had believed the letter. No one asked who had repeated the rumor. For the first time since the warning arrived, the village shared something without placing a story around it. Rice passed from hand to hand. This sounds small. It is not. A shared meal can do what arguments cannot. When we eat together, the body remembers something the mind forgets. We all become hungry. We all need water. We all grow tired. We all depend on things we did not create alone. The farmer had spent the previous day helping bar the meeting hall. Now he accepted rice from the monk. He ate quickly. The monk did not remind him of the locked doors. The farmer did not apologize. Not yet. But he remained. Sometimes presence is the first apology a person knows how to offer. The stranger asked the young farmer, "Why did you come?" The farmer looked uncomfortable. "My mother sent me." Anya laughed. "No, she did not." The farmer looked at her. "How would you know?" "Your mother is visiting your aunt." The farmer's face reddened. The others smiled. He looked down at his bowl. "I was hungry," he admitted. The monk said, "Then you came for the right reason." No one made him explain more. The bowl moved again. This is the freedom of a meal with no questions. Not because questions are bad. Questions can open truth. But there are times when questions become a price. Explain yourself before you sit. Prove you are sorry before you eat. Tell us which side you are on before we share warmth. The monk asked for none of this. He did not use the rice to purchase trust. He did not make food into a test of loyalty. He shared because hunger was present. The Buddhist tradition has always understood the dignity of offering food. A bowl given freely does more than fill the stomach. It says, "For this moment, you do not have to earn your place among us." Many people spend their whole lives trying to earn that place. They become useful, quiet, successful, easy to love. They explain their wounds carefully so they will not make anyone uncomfortable. They believe acceptance will come when they have answered every question correctly. But sometimes the deepest healing begins when someone passes us a bowl without asking who we have been. The old man ate slowly. Then he said, "My wife used to make rice like this." No one responded immediately. He looked toward the empty house across the road. "She always burned the bottom." Anya said, "My mother does that too." Her mother gave her a look. The old man laughed. It was the first time anyone had heard him laugh since his wife died. Then his face changed. Grief entered again, not because the laughter was false, because joy can open the door to what we miss. The monk did not rush to comfort him. He did not say his wife was in a better place. He did not tell him to release attachment. He let the grief sit beside the bowl. This matters. Spiritual words can become another way of avoiding human pain. We speak of impermanence when someone needs to cry. We speak of letting go when someone still needs to name what was lost. The monk understood that wisdom does not always speak first. Sometimes it shares rice. Sometimes it remains near. The old man wiped his eyes. "I was angry with her when she died." The group became quiet. He continued, "She wanted me to visit my brother. I refused. We argued. That night, she became ill." Anya's mother reached toward him, then stopped. The old man looked at the monk. "Is that why I cannot forgive her?" The monk asked, "What do you believe she did?" "She left before I could make it right." The monk waited. The old man looked into his bowl. The answer had come from his own mouth. He was not only angry with his wife, he was angry with death for closing the door before he could explain himself. We all know this pain in different forms. A person leaves before hearing our apology. A friendship ends before we say what we meant. Someone dies carrying a version of us we wanted to correct. We imagine that one final conversation would have made everything peaceful, but some conversations never come. The old man whispered, "She died thinking I did not love her." The monk asked, "Do you know that?" We argued, "That is what happened." She must have thought, "That is what you fear." The old man became still. He had carried one imagined final thought for 3 months. He had treated it as truth. Perhaps his wife had died feeling angry. Perhaps she had remembered 50 years of shared life. Perhaps fear had filled her mind. Perhaps love had. He could not know. The monk said, "Do not turn what you cannot know into a punishment you must carry forever." The old man closed his eyes. The stranger looked at the bowl. A meal without questions had allowed the first honest question to arise. Not one forced by accusation, one made safe by presence. This is often how truth comes, not when we demand it, when a person no longer feels they must defend themselves. The meal ended slowly. People stood one by one. The young farmer took the empty bowl. "I will wash this," he said. The monk nodded. The farmer walked toward the houses. No one asked which side he was on now. The village still had not opened the meeting hall. The letter had not been withdrawn. The rumor had not disappeared. But beneath the tree, people had sat together. They had eaten from one bowl, and for 1 hour no one had needed to be fully understood before being allowed to belong. Anya's mother gathered the cups. She looked at the monk. "You may sleep beneath our roof tonight." The monk bowed. The stranger smiled. One door had opened wider, but not every doubt had left the woman's heart. As she carried the bowls home, she remembered the warning. She remembered her husband's silence. She remembered the monk's kindness. Both memories lived inside her, and before night came, she would have to decide whether opening her door meant trusting him. The monk would soon learn that kindness can be seen clearly and still leave doubt behind. The monk would soon learn that kindness can be seen clearly and still leave doubt behind. We begin with a mother who opened her door before her fear had fully left. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. Anya's mother stood inside her house, preparing a place for the monk to sleep. She placed a woven mat near the wall. She folded a blanket at one end. She set a clay cup beside a small water jar. Her hands moved with care, but her mind did not move peacefully. One thought said, "He has shown kindness." Another answered, "Kind people can still hide dangerous things." One thought remembered how he had shared rice with Anya. Another remembered the letter. One thought saw the tired man beneath the tree. Another saw her former husband sitting in silence, using calmness like a locked door. Both memories lived inside her. This is where many of us stand, not between truth and a lie, between what is happening now and what happened before. We want to trust the present, but the past keeps placing its hand over our eyes. The monk entered after sunset. He stopped near the doorway and bowed. "Thank you for allowing us to stay." The stranger stood behind him. Anya's mother looked at the second man. "I prepared only one mat." "I can sleep outside," the stranger said. "No," she replied quickly. She did not want anyone outside in the cold. Then she noticed how quickly she had answered. Her kindness had moved before her fear. This surprised her. "I will find another blanket," she said. The monk removed his sandals. He placed them carefully beside the door. He did not walk farther into the house until she showed him where to sit. She noticed this too. People who believe they are entitled to a place often enter as if permission has already been given. The monk waited. Still, doubt remained. Fear does not disappear simply because the person before us behaves well. Sometimes fear becomes more suspicious. It says, This is how they gain your trust. Anya came from the back room carrying a small oil lamp. "You stayed," she said. "For tonight," the monk answered. "Will you tell me a story?" Her mother looked at her. "Let him rest." The monk smiled. "One short story." Anya sat immediately. Her mother remained standing. The stranger leaned against the wall. The monk looked at the small flame. "Once," he began, "a woman found a snake near her door." Anya's eyes widened. She became afraid and called her neighbors. They came carrying sticks, but when they reached the door, they saw that it was only a rope. Anya laughed. The woman felt foolish. Was she foolish? The monk asked. Anya thought. She was wrong. Yes, but she thought it was real. Yes. The monk looked at the mother. Fear can be sincere and still be mistaken. The mother's body became still. She wondered whether the story was meant for her. The old suspicion rose. He is teaching through the child because he does not have the courage to speak directly. Then another thought came. Perhaps it is only a story. She did not know. Not knowing felt uncomfortable. The monk continued. The next night, the woman saw another shape near the door. This time she told herself it must be a rope. She reached down without looking carefully. Anya leaned closer. It was a snake? Yes. Anya became serious. So she was wrong twice. The first night she trusted fear without looking. The second night she rejected fear without looking. What should she have done? The monk answered, "Bring the lamp closer." Anya looked at the oil flame. Her mother understood. Wisdom was not believing every fear. It was not ignoring every fear either. It was looking carefully. This is harder than either extreme. Fear wants immediate obedience. Pride wants immediate rejection. Attention asks us to stay long enough to see. Anya said, "So fear is not always bad." No. Then why do people say we should not be afraid? Because people often confuse courage with never feeling fear. The monk adjusted the lamp. Fear can protect us. It can also imprison us. We must learn which one it is doing. Anya's mother sat near the doorway. She had not planned to join the story, but now she asked, "How can you know?" The monk looked at her. "You may not know immediately." She disliked the answer. People who have been harmed often want certainty before trust. They want a sign that cannot be copied, a rule that never fails, a way to recognize danger before it enters. But there is no perfect protection from human beings. We can look carefully, we can notice patterns, we can set boundaries. Still, some uncertainty remains. The mother said, "That is not comforting." "No," the monk replied. "You tell people to examine everything, but while they are examining, harm can happen." "Yes. And if they close the door, they may reject someone innocent." "Yes." She felt irritation. "You always leave both sides open." Life often leaves both sides open. The stranger watched her face. He had asked the monk similar questions. He understood the frustration. The mind wants one clear answer because responsibility is heavy. If we trust and are harmed, we blame ourselves. If we refuse trust and lose something good, we blame ourselves again. We want someone else to tell us which choice will prevent regret. The mother asked, "Would you trust everyone?" "No." "Then why should I trust you?" "You should not trust me because I ask you to." The answer came without offense. "Then what should I do?" "Watch." "For how long?" "As long as you need." The mother looked around her own house. "You are already under my roof." "Yes." "What if allowing you inside was a mistake?" "Then you may ask me to leave." The monk did not demand that her invitation become permanent. He did not use her kindness as a promise she could not withdraw. This softened something in her. Control had been part of her old suffering. Her husband had made every choice feel final. If she welcomed him, she had to accept everything. If she questioned him, she was disloyal. If she asked for space, she was cruel. The monk offered another possibility. A door could open without disappearing. Trust could begin without becoming blind. Compassion could exist beside caution. The mother said, "My husband was quiet like you." The room changed. Anya looked at her mother. The woman rarely spoke about him. The monk waited. "He never shouted," she continued. "People thought he was gentle." The monk did not say, "I am not him." He did not defend his silence. He listened. "He could ignore me for days," she said. "If I asked what was wrong, he looked through me. Then outside our house he spoke about peace." The woman's voice shook. Everyone believed him. Anya moved closer to her. The mother looked at the monk. "So when people told me you refused to answer villagers, I believed them." The monk nodded. "You think that was foolish?" "No." "You think it was wrong?" "I think it came from something real." The mother waited. The monk continued. "The danger may not have been real, but the pain that recognized it was." Tears entered her eyes. For years, people had argued with her fear. They said she imagined too much. They said she should forget. They said the past was over. No one had told her that a fear could be mistaken about the present and still be telling the truth about the past. This is what healing asks us to hold. The old pain was real. The new person was different. Both could be true. The mother said, "I do not want what happened to me to happen to Anya." "Of course. So I warn her. That is a mother's work. But I may teach her to fear people who have done nothing." "That is possible." The woman lowered her head. The monk said, "Protecting a child does not mean giving her all your fears." The words were gentle. Still, they hurt. She remembered pulling Anya away from the tree. She remembered saying kindness did not matter. She remembered the fear on her daughter's face when her own grip became too tight. What should I give her instead? "A lamp." The mother looked at the oil flame. "Teach her to look closely. Teach her that kindness should be watched over time. Teach her that words and actions should agree. Teach her she may leave when something feels unsafe." The monk paused. "And teach her that another person's wound does not have to become her world." The mother began crying quietly. Anya placed her head against her arm. The monk looked away. He gave her privacy inside the same room. Compassion does not always move closer. Sometimes it knows when not to watch another person's pain. The stranger noticed this. The monk's silence had been called pride. Here it became shelter. The same act can carry different intentions. This is why we must look beyond appearance. Silence can punish. Silence can listen. Silence can hide. Silence can make room. The mother wiped her face. "I still do not know whether I trust you." The monk looked back at her. "You do not have to know tonight." Relief entered before she could stop it. She had expected spiritual pressure. Forgive, release, open your heart. Instead, the monk allowed her doubt to remain. This was another kind of kindness. Not every doubt must be defeated. Some doubts need time to discover whether they are warnings or memories. Anya asked, "Do you trust my mother?" The monk smiled. "I trust that she loves you." "That is not what I asked." The stranger laughed softly. The monk considered the question. "I trust some things I have seen." "Like what?" She brought tea while she was still afraid. She opened her door while she still had questions. She told the truth about her doubt. Anya looked pleased. The mother looked surprised. The monk continued, "But I do not know everything about her." Anya asked, "Does that frighten you?" "A little." Her mother stared at him. "You are afraid of me." Fear arises when we enter any place we do not fully know. The monk did not pretend that trust moved only in one direction. The mother had feared him. He also knew he was sleeping inside the home of a stranger who had once believed a warning about him. Both had taken a risk. Trust was not one person proving themselves while the other remained safely hidden. It was two people allowing uncertainty without turning it immediately into danger. Later, the house became quiet. Anya slept beside her mother. The stranger lay near the back wall. The monk rested near the door. He had chosen the place closest to the exit. The mother noticed. Perhaps he wanted her to know he could leave easily. Perhaps he felt safer there. Perhaps it meant nothing. For once, she did not force herself to decide. Night passed without harm. At dawn, the monk woke first. He folded the blanket. He filled the water jar. He swept the earth near the doorway. The mother watched from the back room. Kindness, she thought. Then doubt answered, or performance. She let both thoughts pass. She brought the lamp closer. She watched. The monk prepared to leave. Before he reached the doorway, shouting came from across the road. A boy was running between the houses. "The old man has fallen," he cried. "He will not wake." The mother looked at the monk. Fear returned, not fear of him. Fear for the old man. The monk picked up his bag and moved toward the door. No one asked whether the village trusted him now. No one asked whether the warning had been withdrawn. Illness had arrived, and the same people who had closed their doors would soon come searching for his help. No one asked whether the village trusted him now. No one asked whether the warning had been withdrawn. Illness had arrived, and the same people who had closed their doors would soon come searching for his help. We begin with a village that remembered the monk only when fear became greater than suspicion. Wherever you are right now, this is for you. The boy ran from house to house. The old man has fallen. Doors opened quickly. People who had watched one another through narrow spaces now stepped into the road. Anya's mother followed the monk across the village. The stranger came behind them. When they reached the old man's house, several people were already gathered outside. No one had entered. They stood near the doorway, whispering. He was well yesterday. He ate beneath the tree. Perhaps the food was bad. Perhaps the monk gave him something. Fear does not always wait for truth. Even now, with the old man lying inside, suspicion searched for somewhere to stand. The monk heard the words. He did not answer them. He entered the house. The old man lay on the floor near his sleeping mat. His eyes were closed. His breathing was weak. A cup had fallen beside him. Water had spread across the earth. The monk knelt. He placed 2 fingers near the old man's neck. Then he leaned close to hear his breath. The village elder stood in the doorway. "Can you help him?" The monk looked up. "I can try." The answer disappointed some of them. They wanted certainty. They wanted him to say the old man would live. People often ask spiritual figures to promise what no human being can promise. Will he recover? Will the pain stop? Will everything return to how it was? The honest answer is often difficult. I do not know. The monk asked for warm water, clean cloth, and space. No one moved at first. They were waiting for instructions but had not expected to become part of the work. Anya's mother turned. "Bring what he asked for." Her voice broke the stillness. A woman ran for water. The young farmer brought cloth. The stranger moved people away from the doorway so fresh air could enter. The monk lifted the old man's head carefully. He wet the cloth and placed it against his face. The old man did not respond. The village elder said, "What is wrong with him?" "I do not know." "You are a monk." "Yes." "Do you not know medicines?" "Some." "Then do something." The monk looked at him. "I am doing what I can." The elder's fear became anger. This happens often. Fear feels helpless. Anger gives it a weapon. The elder said, "If he dies." He stopped. The sentence had not yet chosen its ending. If he dies, it will be your fault. If he dies, the warning was true. If he dies, someone must carry our pain." The monk understood. He returned his attention to the old man. This is one of the hardest forms of compassion. Helping someone while blame is already being prepared. We want kindness to protect us. We think if our intentions are good, people will see them. But when fear enters a room, even care can be mistaken for harm. The old man's hand moved, a small movement. Then his eyes opened halfway. He tried to speak. No sound came. The monk leaned closer. The old man whispered one word: "Wife." The monk understood. The old man was not calling for medicine. He was calling for someone who was no longer alive. Illness had opened the door to memory. The village elder asked, "What did he say?" The monk did not answer immediately. Some words belong first to the person who speaks them. The old man tried again. "I left her angry." The monk held his hand. "You are here. She died angry. You do not know that." The old man's breathing became faster. "I never said I was sorry. You can say it now." The people near the doorway became quiet. The elder frowned. "She cannot hear him." The monk looked at the old man, not the elder. "Speak." The old man's lips shook. "I am sorry." The room held the words. No one knew where they went, perhaps nowhere, perhaps into the old man's own heart. Not every apology reaches the person we harmed. Sometimes the only remaining place it can enter is the part of us that has been waiting to speak. The monk said, "Tell her what you could not say." The old man closed his eyes. "I was afraid." His voice was weak. "I thought if I went to my brother, she would see that I needed him." The villagers listened. The argument had never been only about a visit. It had been about pride, need, the fear of appearing weak. The old man whispered, "I loved her." The monk held his hand more firmly. "Stay with that." The old man breathed. Once, twice. Then his body softened. Anya's mother covered her mouth. For one terrible moment, everyone thought he had died. Then another breath came, slow, shallow, but present. The room released the air it had been holding. The monk asked for more water. He mixed a small amount of herbs from his bag. He touched the liquid to the old man's lips. Nothing miraculous happened, no sudden recovery. The old man remained weak, but his breathing became steadier. The elder asked, "Will he live?" The monk answered, "He is alive now." Again, no promise, only the truth of the present moment. This is all any of us are ever given. Alive now, breathing now, loved now. The mind rushes toward tomorrow. Will it last? What comes next? But life is always happening in the narrow place called now. The monk sat beside the old man for hours. The villagers came and went. Some brought water, some brought food, some stood outside only to listen. The same people who had closed their doors now watched the monk with hope. But hope can judge as quickly as fear. If the old man recovered, they might call the monk wise. If he died, they might call him false. The monk would become whatever the outcome allowed them to believe. The stranger saw this. He whispered, "Yesterday they thought you were dangerous. Today they look at you as if you can save him." The monk answered, "Both are stories. But one is kinder. Kind stories can also become chains." The stranger looked confused. The monk continued, "If they believe I can save everyone, what happens when I cannot?" The stranger understood. Praise can place a person on a height from which blame is waiting below. People may call someone extraordinary because they need certainty, then punish them when they are human. The Buddhist path does not ask us to become untouchable. It asks us to see clearly. A teacher can help and still fail. A monk can show compassion and still feel pride. A healer can offer medicine and still lose a patient. The value of the action does not depend entirely on the result. By afternoon, the old man woke fully. His eyes were clearer. He looked around the room. "You are all inside my house," he said. Someone laughed. Relief moved through the village. The elder stepped closer. "You frightened us." The old man looked at the monk. "He stayed?" "Yes," Anya's mother said. The old man turned toward him. "Did I say anything foolish?" The monk smiled gently. "You said something true." The old man closed his eyes again. He remembered enough. Tears moved down his face. The monk did not tell the others what had been spoken. The village wanted a story. He protected the old man's dignity instead. This too was kindness without explanation. Outside, the people began speaking differently. He saved him. The monk knew what to do. The warning may have been wrong. Perhaps we judged too quickly. The rumor was changing direction. The stranger heard it. He should have felt satisfied. He had wanted the village to understand. Now they were moving toward admiration. But he noticed how quickly they moved. Yesterday, one letter had made the monk proud. Today, one act had made him holy. They still were not seeing him. They were only replacing one simple story with another. We do this often. Someone disappoints us. They become bad. Then they help us. They become good. We keep turning whole human beings into one word. The monk stepped outside near sunset. The villagers moved toward him. The elder bowed. "We were wrong." The monk returned the bow. "About some things." The elder looked uncertain. "You helped him?" "Yes." "You did not have to?" "No." The elder expected the monk to say more, perhaps to forgive them, perhaps to teach them, perhaps to make the moment complete. The monk only asked, "Who will stay with him tonight?" The question returned them to what mattered. 3 people volunteered. Anya's mother offered food. The young farmer said he would repair the old man's roof. The village was learning something through action that words had not been able to teach. Compassion was not admiration. It was staying, carrying water, sharing the night. The elder said, "Will you teach in the hall tomorrow?" The monk looked toward the closed building. The wooden bar was still across the door. "Do the people want to listen?" The elder looked at the crowd. Some nodded. Others looked away. Their trust had not become complete. Neither had their doubt disappeared. The monk said, "Open the hall for those who wish to come." The elder walked toward it. He removed the wooden bar. The sound of the doors opening moved through the village. But the monk did not feel victory. He felt tired. He felt relief. He also felt the old desire to be seen as good. He noticed it. Then he let it pass. Anya approached him. "Did you heal the old man?" "No." "But he woke up." "Yes." "Then who healed him?" The monk looked toward the house. "His body did some of the work. The herbs may have helped. The people brought water. He had more strength than we knew." Anya thought about this. "So everyone helped?" "Yes." The monk refused to become the center of the story. This is difficult. When praise arrives, part of us wants to gather it, to say, "Yes, I did this." But almost nothing is done alone. A meal contains the farmer, the rain, the soil, the cook, and the person who carried the bowl. A life is supported by more hands than we can name. The monk had helped, but he had not acted alone. The village elder came back. "The hall is open." The monk bowed. People began preparing mats. For the first time, the village seemed ready to hear him. But before the teaching began, the old man woke again. He asked to speak with the elder. The 2 men remained inside for a long time. When the elder returned, his face had changed. The old man had told him what he remembered from the night. He had told him the monk had not saved him. He had simply stayed. And he had asked the elder to stop turning the monk into either a danger or a miracle. The elder stood before the open hall and looked at the waiting villagers. Then he turned toward the monk. For the first time, he did not ask for proof. He did not ask for a promise. He said, "Teach us how to remain when we cannot fix what is happening." The monk entered the hall. No one knew that another person had already begun regretting the harm she caused. Far across the river, Mira had heard that the village sought the monk's help. She did not yet know whether the old man had lived. But the letter she had written now felt heavier in her hands, and before the next morning, an elder would finally understand what the monk had been trying to teach. If these stories bring you peace, clarity, or comfort, subscribe and continue this journey with us. More Buddhist stories and timeless life lessons are waiting for you.